There once was a man named Gold Roger who was king of the pirates. He had fame, power, and wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Before they hung him from the gallows, these were the final words he said.
Our perspective is yours for the taking, but you'll have to join us first. We left everything we debated at the Yonko table.
Ever since, pirates from all over the world set sail for the Grand Line, searching for the Yonko table, the table that will make their dreams come true.
Yo, folks, welcome to the latest and the greatest from the Yonko table. That is the name, that is the voice of Chef Grandmaster Hoop, and we're coming from the Windy City of Chicago to discuss FX's acclaimed comedy drama series, The Bear. Not to be confused with Bear Paint, that their ads run on Netflix ads and Hulu. No, we're talking about The Bear, formerly known as The Beef. It's a show. It's a great show. We love the show. That's why we're here to discuss it. And yes, I did refer to myself as Chef because for the running of this podcast, myself and the Supernovas who are here, let's first hear who's joining us right now. Perfect. We will be referring to each other as chefs because it's a sign of respect. And this podcast is no longer, we're not in in our rooms and whatnot. We are in a kitchen because we're going to create something cool here. But before we get into it, just here's an overview of The Bear real quick. And y'all can jump in if I miss anything. So The Bear, created by Christopher Storer. Christopher Storer, if you know him, best known for directing comedy specials such as Bo Burnham, Hassan Minaj, and Hulu series Rami. He's played a part in that. The Bear stars Jeremy Allen White of Shameless fame, Ebon Moss Bachrach, if I said that correctly, I hope so. Ayo Adibari, who's on the come up, Lionel Boyce, Liza Colon Zayas, Abby Elliott, and Maddie Matheson. And we are here to discuss The Bear in its entirety because there are 2 seasons out of The Bear. The first season walked away last year with a plethora of high praise. And including multiple best new series, best comedy series, multiple best show rankings. Jeremy Allen White, multiple acting nods, including a win for Golden Globe for Best Actor in Musical or Comedy. And I said a mouthful. He did not win the Emmy.
Who won the Emmy that year?
I think that was your boy. Succession.
My boy. You won the...
What? Potentially.
Okay.
Maybe Strong won during the pandemic.
Oh, he didn't win multiple? He didn't win multiple?
We have Google. Keep talking. I'll look it up.
I mean, those are the major accolades of The Bear. If I'm missing some, that's paper stuff. But we're here to discuss. So I want to know, why are y'all here to discuss The Bear? What has drawn you to The Bear? What are your overall thoughts on The Bear as a show, as its entirety? Why are you here right now, chefs?
Thank you, Chef, for the intro. I think it's funny because I think what drew me to The Bear in season 1 and what I left kind of feeling after season 1 is very different than how I leave feeling season 2. So, I think what drew me to the project overall was it looked like, well made, well produced. So I was like, all right, I'll check this out. FX has kind of earned my trust when it comes to these 30-minute shows. And, I think the first season was super impressive. I thought they really captured what it was like living, working in a kind of a restaurant, kind of the high intensity of it. And, I think it kind of culminated with their one-shotter, I think episode 7, I believe.
Episode 7, yep. The review.
Season 1. Yes, it was just wow. It was honestly, it was so intense that I don't think it hit me. They hadn't cut until 10 minutes in. I was like, wait a second, they haven't cut yet. I can't look away. And I left that first season being all right, good show, really impressive, kind of what they're doing with what Jeremy Alan White's character is happening beneath the surface was like interesting as well, and like his relationship with his brother, but didn't quite love it. You know, I don't think it made like my top 5 TV shows of last year. Was impressed by it, told friends about it, but overall was like, oh, that's a good show. I'll be interested in season 2. This season 2, man, I think it really like leveled up. It really went to like a special place that I am like, you know, I think I'd use the word impressed and impressive about season 1. I like season 2 felt like moving. Season 2 felt like drew me in a way that like only I think a few shows can, where I'm starting to really care about these characters, really care about like their arcs. And I know we're gonna get to it, but there's one character in particular who I think really embodies like kind of like my different feelings between season 1 and season 2, where I just like we'll get to it. Chef Rika, your thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Chef. Just to give you some information about our awards things that we were not sure of. So The Bear season 1 is eligible for this coming Emmys, so they were not nominated for last year's. Yeah,
Gotcha.
so it's because of when it came out. So
That's weird.
the potential will certainly, you know, be in contention. So we'll see what happens. But part of what you said, Chef, about admiring something but not quite sure how connected you feel to it is how I feel about a lot of things that I've watched pretty recently, of really admiring the craft, the acting, the writing, etc. But maybe I don't feel like my heart is completely in it. And so the difference between admiring something, liking something, what I appreciate about The Bear is I have both. I admire it. It's well written. It's well acted. It's well constructed. They do really interesting things with the camera work. You already mentioned, you know, the shining star of season 1, which is that Warner. But then you also really, really love these characters. At least I certainly do. And I loved the first season, and it was recommended by a colleague, and a bunch of us are mental health professionals, and they're like, they actually do a really good job of covering like the impact of trauma and interpersonal relationships and anxiety. So those are the things, of course, that we care about. But it's the relationships, it's the characters that they're building, it's the meaning that they make out of these relationships. And sure, it's about the food, but that's only like the surface. There's so much that's going on underneath. And season 2, I think we speak a lot about whether the context of like whether it's films or movies and films, whether it's movies, music, or TV shows. There's always this worry of like, what is the second thing going to bring us? You know, what is the sophomore album, the second season, the second movie? And they really hit it out of the park. This was a really excellent season of TV for so many different reasons that we'll get into today. But they're doing something really special, I feel like, in exploring a lot of different themes, but also growing the characters. And I think that's exactly what I wanted out of season 2, and that's what we got. And I'm looking forward to season 3. I imagine they certainly will be renewed. There's no doubt in my mind.
No doubt.
So, yeah, a really, really wonderful show. Highly recommend.
Well said, chefs. Well said. And
Thank you,
to
Chef.
preface, y'all watched season 1 upon its original airing last year, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Had our hand on
Okay.
the pulse.
Gotcha. I mean, I'm new to The Bear. I just started probably last month. Yeah. And so I definitely watched season 1 and season 2 back to back. And I share the same sentiments that y'all have shared. I do, however, think it is an interesting watch to go from season 1 immediately into season 2. I think that provides I don't know, y'all had some downtime with The Bear where I just had this quick Succession. Succession. We're not talking about that show. But definitely obviously there's a kind of an atmospheric shift between seasons of season 1 and 2 of The Bear. But before we get into season 2, I would like to highlight some things in season 1 if y'all would care to join me in just a brief overview of season 1. I don't even think I mentioned the plot to our viewers here. So for anyone who doesn't know the plot of The Bear, it is a kitchen workplace comedy on the surface, but then there is an interpersonal human experience subtext. I think that is the bear. That is the bear in a nutshell. And it's about a young chef from the world of fine dining comes home to Chicago to run his family's Italian beef sandwich shop after the suicide of his older brother, who left behind debts, a rundown kitchen, and unruly staff. And you could do a lot with that, as the bear has shown. Y'all mentioned anxiety watching the bear season 1. Carmy, our main character, going through a lot, and the kitchen, I think that is the perfect environment to explore anxiety in a restaurant, because if you're dealing with your own personal issues, as Carmy is with, grief and trauma and whatever else he's got going on in the world of a young chef, the kitchen in a restaurant is the perfect place where there's 10 million things going on, and yet you are not dealing with the personal things you have going on in your life. I think that, I don't know, I gotta give props to Christopher Storer, because when I looked up what he's done in the past, he's done a lot of comedy specials and whatnot. I think that makes perfect sense that he's doing a show like The Bear, because the comedy specials are very real and very raw in terms of what they use to, tell their stories and portray, and how they turn, oftentimes they turn traumatic stories into comedy. And I think that's really present in The Bear as a whole. And definitely it's a progression. You see, you get to know these characters in season 1, but it's like such a toxic environment. A lot of people describe The Bear, watching it's toxic. Do you feel similar sentiments as far as when you watch season 1? Just, I don't know, the screaming, the yelling, the everything going on in season 1. Would you want to be in that kitchen?
No, absolutely not, chef. Would not want to work in that kitchen. Doesn't season the oneer end with Richie getting stabbed?
He gets stabbed at the end of the review. Yes. Yep.
I mean, like, just seems not quite the place that I would want to work in. And I think that ties into kind of like, in my eyes, the difference between like season 1 and season 2, and probably like why I feel so much different about season 2 and a little stronger about it, is that season 1 just felt so claustrophobic, which was like the idea of the show. It just like was like, you're squeezing all these personalities in together, and like all these like different people like with different levels of ambitions, where like some people are just going through the motions, and you have a character like Sid who like seemed to be really striving for something. And I think like one of the major differences between 1 and 2 is that they take a step back. They kind of like the restaurant's not even open. You know what I mean? But like the claustrophobicness is like, it's a little shifted because they have like their time frame of when they need to open, but they just give a lot of more room to breathe, as I'm sure we're going to get to throughout this conversation.
Yeah, I would agree. I think season 1 was very indicative of like, Carmy's our main character, or some folks would argue one of 3 main characters, however you want to frame it. But ultimately, it is focused on his family and his story and bringing him back to Chicago. And I think season 1 feels very indicative of kind of where his mental headspace is like, it is anxiety inducing. You are trying to kind of navigate grief and loss, and then not only like family trauma, but whatever he had experienced in this fine dining world. We got glimpses of that. Like, it wasn't easy. And now having to kind of step back into something that he knows was super impactful, of course, brings up a lot of anxiety. You don't really know how to manage that. And I think that felt indicative of Ben being in the kitchen and not being sure how to manage the various personalities, and how do you pay for all these things, and how do you even just run a restaurant that in a way that feels very different than the restaurants he'd worked in previously. And so it felt like season 1 had to be kind of anxiety driven, had to be very claustrophobic, had to be set us up for a season 2 that could be more introspective, quieter in some ways. And also like taking its time. I think something I really appreciated is, and we'll talk about how there were some episodes that just focused in on one side character. And some shows we don't get that. We don't get the time to really explore one particular character and their journey. And I think maybe we got it more in the past when there was like 22 episodes of a season on like traditional TV. At this point in time, you get 8 to 10 episodes. And so what do you want to prioritize? And I really appreciated that they said, well, we want to get to know all the people in the kitchen. It's not just about Carmy. It's not just about Sydney. It's not just about Richie. And they all got their moments, but there were clear storylines and consideration around some of these characters. So you really understand, oh, okay, this is where this person is coming from. And, Marcus's story, Tina's story, etc. And so all of the chaos of season 1, we can start to unfold that a little bit more and be able to hold the characters as they're holding each other and growing amongst one another. And I can see why you'd want to lean more into season 2 versus season 1 if you're a watcher. So.
I think season 1 is just, as you said, like you needed all the chaos to perfectly set up season 2. There are moments in season 1 where you get those sprinkles of, more insight to the characters. Like, we see Marcus and he starts, really starting to listen to Carmy. We see Tina starts adhering to what Sydney has to say and whatnot. And there's sprinkles of it. And then when you get to season 2, you really get the whole, they took the lid off the sprinkle shaker and you get a lot of these characters. And I think that's really good. And I think overall that's a theme about The Bear, is just, embracing change. And, you have characters that some are kind of stuck in their ways, or, they are they're okay with how things are done. And, that's stagnant. That's not growth. And there's mental things that are going on as far as, personal mental blocks characters are going through, and they don't think they can grow or push themselves to be anything more than what they already are. And we'll definitely get into that. I think, that's a shot at Richie right there. And Ibra. But yeah, I think, season 1, you need it, and it makes perfect sense. I think how season 2 plays out, just, going, if you do a side-by-side comparison, you needed season 1 in order to make season 2 even better. And then,
great job, Chef. Before we move on and maybe
sure.
dive into season 2, just like the last thing, and I don't know if this is an original thought. I may have heard this like on a different podcast or like read it on Twitter somewhere, but I think it just kind of like ring true to me. The idea that how like The Bear overall could be interpreted as being a bit meta about like what it means to like create art and like, create a TV show like this. And, I think especially when you're new and you kind of haven't been established, it can feel like season 1 where you're just like, go, go, go. You're just throwing everything together. You have no idea if anything's going to be successful. And it's just like kind of like intense and anxiety inducing and all this. While like maybe you find success, maybe you find a ton of money in a tomato jars and tomato cans.
Tomato paste, tomato,
tomato sauce.
And surprisingly, you find like some success that you then decide to like double down. You want to like create a sequel. You want to like create something bigger. And I think that's like that could be like what a lot of season 2 can be like seen as. It's like these characters who found like some success with their first thing they created, and trying to take that success and turn it into a high-end restaurant, if you will. I just thought that was an interesting kind of look at like maybe like a layer deep of like what the writers and creators may have been going for or thinking about as they were creating this.
No, I can see that. I definitely see that now that you say that. Now I think, is there more meta commentary throughout season 1? For example, feeding a bunch of kids ecto whatever with was it Zanny? Was it Zanny in there?
I think so, something like that. They all go to sleep.
Are you saying that sometimes you might put your audience to sleep and Sometimes that's okay because we don't want a bunch of kids running around anyways. I don't know. But
Yeah.
funny little moment, season 1.
Yep. It was a funny moment. Yep.
I think we have less of that in season 2, which is fine. Season 2 has its own funny moments as itself. But any more final thoughts, chefs, on season 1? We didn't really get into the context because I think that'll come out because a lot of season 2 is about progression of these characters. So we'll look to see where these characters were before and where they are now. Any other thoughts on season 1?
I think you have to build a strong foundation to see what the future may look like. And I think season 1 was really, really solid. It was a great season of TV, which then lent itself for continued growth and what we got out of season 2, which I think was even stronger.
All right. Well said, Chef. Well said. All right, let's do season 2, which I think season 2 should be properly titled, I don't know, The Road to the Bear. Road to Bear.
It never officially opens, right?
No, not by the end. We only got the end of Family and Friends night.
Family and Friends, yeah.
Yeah, that's where it ends. So the soft opening, not the grand opening. So I imagine season 3 will cover the grand opening. But season 1 finale ends with, as Chef Hooper TV has said, they found the money. Carmi's brother Michael had left all this money that he was planning on committing fraud or paying back their uncle Cicero back with, and now they're going to use that money to do something big. They're going to do something daring. They're going to shut down the Beef. Chicago's The Beef, which is actually a real restaurant. I think you can go there still.
Interesting. No, I didn't know that.
Or it's based on a real restaurant called The Beef, if I'm not mistaken. And now Carmi's gonna, he's in a different headspace. He's gotten some closure with Michael. He's got the support of his sister Nat and Sydney and the rest of the crew here at The Beef. And now we're gonna open the Bear. So as we said, season 2 is it's a countdown clock, huh? Countdown clock, right? I like countdown clocks as far as this is what we want by the end of the season.
I think they do a good job in those first couple episodes of, being like, like you said, they say they get all this money and they're like, you know what, this is enough to like close down the restaurant and open something even better. And immediately in, I think the first 2 episodes, maybe just the first one, they're like, you know what, the time frame is going to be a lot shorter than we thought. And actually, this isn't enough money to do it. We have to go to Cicero and get more money because we thought this was enough, but it really isn't. We have to like cut this deal with them. And it's just like, immediately it's like, wait, it's not all hunky dory. Like that moment of like them like kind of finding some success at the end of season 1. It's not setting them up to just like cruise into improving the restaurant. There's going to be like time limits that each episode is going to remind you of. There's going to be like so much that they have to do that they also kind of like stays throughout the season. And they just do a really good job of like establishing, the conflict again and establishing that their backs against the wall immediately. So I think that was like a good way to start the season.
Yeah, because it was what would have been a maybe 6 to 8 month project renovation squeezed into 3 months.
Yeah.
It's something I appreciate, I think, about this show is the reality, but not without hope. Like they indicate, okay, we don't have enough money. We do have to ask for a loan. We don't have enough time, so we do have to squeeze this down. But it doesn't feel like I don't get the sense that the showrunners, the writers, like they don't want them to fail. They want growth to occur. They want them to have this ending where they could be successful. And so there's a sense of like when I watch the show of like I am stressed and I want this good thing to happen for them. And it feels like it will, but the journey there may be a little tumultuous. But I appreciate that there feels like there is a semblance of like, yes, there's a reality that like I think they show throughout, particularly this season, like restaurants close down, businesses struggle, like they're, and that's just kind of where we're at, especially with restaurants and service industries like post COVID, which this world is set in. But it doesn't feel like they write or plan seasons or episodes or storylines out with the intent of like wanting like cynicism. It doesn't feel cynical like the show, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, Chef. I think I totally agree. It was like, it felt like early on, it was like, all right, we can't have this be a super smooth road. We have to establish some stakes. But it's like, nobody's like, I mean, somebody did get stabbed, but we're not like worried that like we're gonna like lose the character during like the red wedding or something. You know what I mean? It does feel a lot. It does feel like there's like this just kind of part, and hopefully I'll be able to describe this better by the end. But there's like this like kind of like just like heart to this show that like kind of reminds me of like Ted Lasso in a way, but like I don't know. I'm gonna ponder this thought more and maybe like circle back to it, like because I do kind of think this season, like the way like Ted Lasso kind of like got like, oh, it's like heartwarming and it's like nice, and it's like I kind of think this show has almost eclipsed what like Ted Lasso may have like once been doing, and especially if you compare this season to Ted Lasso's recent season. But
I think there's like a thoughtfulness of like the realities of life that people struggle like class-wise, which I think this show has a big focus on just like, economics and finances and how do we pay for shit and the impact of that. But it also really wants their characters to like create community to work through the struggles. And so it feels like, it feels, I could get what you mean in terms of like the heartwarming, and I think that comes from not necessarily, and I like Ted Lasso, but I think some of that comes from like you have this very like, boisterous character who is trying to interact and bring up others, and I think that's great. I think something that The Bear does though is really doesn't necessarily want people to change in terms of like their personality. They just want them to find better ways of like coping and navigating difficult situations. It's like, Richie could still be Richie, but like let's add some more helpful capabilities, and let's kind of bring out more of what he can contribute rather than like completely switching him up as a character. So they want them to be who they are authentically, but they just want them to give them the tools to succeed in that while still being them. And I think that's what I feel at least connected to. It felt like what was the theme of the season too.
At times, I'll tell you, I often forget that The Bear is scripted and fictional. I feel a lot of The Bear is just so raw, and I get lost in it, in whether it's the acting, maybe it's the acting, or maybe it's just the writing. I just often forget that this is fiction, but I feel it's just so raw in what it chooses to display. Because like you said, it is set in a post-COVID era, and I think you do not often see that within media. Like it's briefly touched upon, but no, this is real. As you said, restaurants shut down and whatnot, and the pandemic did make people rethink their lives and whatnot, and you see that in The Bear so much, and I feel I think it's just such a great portrayal of what's going on with these characters, and as you said as well, not any of these characters do I feel are 100% significantly different from how they were portrayed in season 1. Everything feels natural. Everything feels like, purposeful, and it feels so real that I feel all these characters can go through the changes that they did. I feel like I'm watching real people again. I feel this is a reality series versus scripted television, and we are witnessing people change before our eyes. I think
Yeah.
season 2 it encapsulates that perfectly.
I think I totally agree with both your points here. It does feel like this, like, really kind of like real. It does not quite feel like we're watching a show. It's like you get sucked into like the restaurants and like coming and goings, and it's almost like you feel like you're kind of like in like, I think it's the last episode where you have the, like, I'm not too sure like how the behind how the kitchen works in these restaurants. I was only a host when I was at a restaurant, but like the people who were just kind of standing there watching, and I don't know if they were the people who were supposed to activate at some point and like run things out. I don't know if you saw those characters, but that's kind of how it feels like you're in this show. You're just somebody who's like just standing there watching these people kind of like go about like their day in the lives. And you know, it feels like, and not to keep bringing up Ted Lasso, but it, like, you know, I think Ted Lasso would hit you with like these nice heartwarming moments. It would usually be done by like Ted doing something super positive that was just undeniable, and it would like hit you in the feels, and then the Mumford and Sons song would like play and you'd be like feeling some type of way. It feels like the Bear just kind of like really earns it. You know what I mean? They really like almost like muscle their way through to like have a really nice moment. I have like plenty of them in this season, but if we're still kind of in the early parts right now, I think the moment where Sid like tells Tina like, you're the sous chef, and Tina gets really excited. It's like, it's so nice because you saw in the first season how tumultuous their like relationship started off, and how over time like Sid was able to like get Tina's respect, and how they were kind of became like a mutual kind of like understanding of each other's roles within like, you know, the ecosystem of the restaurant. And it like, you know, it's such a small moment. They don't focus in on too much. They don't like pause the whole show.
It shows without telling.
Yeah, this is the Mumford and Sons song plays. You know, it's just like you just see Tina smile and you know how much it means to her. You know what I mean? And it's like moments like that they really like over the course of like season 1, and that one in particular, and over the course of like kind of like multiple seasons, some of these moments at the end that just really feel earned, and you kind of like feel it within yourself.
No, that's a really great point. Because I like teared up because that's like episode 1.
Yeah.
Because of the context from season 1. I think a lot of Tina is not getting her due. So you're in this particular field and you're working hard, and for somebody who's coming from an adjacent, like we're still in the food industry in some sort, but Sid has different types of training and different experiences, and to come in and say like, I value you, I see you, I want to help you improve, I want to help you kind of reach new heights, because I see what you're capable of, I think is really meaningful, and I really, really appreciate it. I think that point you made of like the heartwarming moments, the moments in which you're like so proud of a character, are really, really earned. And so knowing Tina's kind of history, and then knowing the history particularly with Sid, leading to that moment of just like hugging and just having a lot of excitement around going to culinary school, and being able to really tap into honing her skills and becoming the sous chef, and having that particular position and respect. I think that a lot for her.
And we can stay on this Tina train, because what Carmy and Sid do is they invest in their team. You know, it's scary to think that we're gonna shut down the beef, something that Michael had, you know, started, and what we learn is that Michael had started many businesses and whatnot, and didn't really care for them more per se. However, he cares for.
Wasn't able to finish. I think that was like a big point. Yeah.
Yes, like he never finishes anything, but he invests in the people. You know, the people. Those are his family. You know, it's a family show at the heart of it all. So for Carmy to finally recognize that, I think by the end of season 1, and then, you know, come season 2, he's like, all right, let's put Tina and Ibra in school. Let's send Marcus to Copenhagen. which I think has a great kind of reveal later on in the Forks episode.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Yep. It again earned as y'all been saying, very much earned. So on the Tina train, love Tina in school. She was getting high praise. Cutting the fillets and whatnot. Like, excellent cut, chef.
It's a really cool knife. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's Carmi's knife too.
Yeah, Carmi's knife.
Which Carmi's knife
He
is a
gave
character
her.
in itself.
And such small moments, because it circles back where Tina's like, oh, what does she call Carmi?
Jeff. Like Hefe.
Yeah, Jeff. And like she says something along the lines of, I haven't gotten you your knife back. I've been meaning to get to you it. And like, I think Carmi says something like, I didn't ask for it back.
I didn't ask for it
it's
back.
Just
yep.
like, it's so small and it's like 5 seconds and it's just like so good.
But mind you, in season 1, remember Carmi's like first day, I guess, they were hiding his knife from him.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know if I remember that.
Yes,
That's
they were
funny.
basically hazing him as the new guy. So they took his knife and they hid it from him, and he couldn't find his knife like the entirety of episode 1 of season 1. So the knife has had a little journey. I don't maybe I'm reaching. I don't think I'm reaching.
No, that sounds real.
But yes, and then so now I didn't ask for it back. She's making friends at culinary school.
She does the karaoke.
She does the
Another
karaoke.
Just good moment, man. Just
Yes.
Because she
And
feels
then
nervous and kind of like, she's an older person, like with a bunch of young people, like, and it, that feels like a real dynamic.
That's scary. That's a real thing. Yes.
They invite you to a karaoke bar. And, I don't know when this song that she's pulling from, but like, it just feels, it's not like your typical like karaoke number, but then she like crushes it. And then like everybody's cheering for her. And it's just like such a nice moment. I really, that was easily one of my favorite moments of the season.
We'll circle back to the finale. Let's save character moments in the finale for when we talk about the finale. Chef Rika, were you about to?
No, I was just echoing Tina's whole storyline. I really appreciated that they didn't give her like her own episode, like we'll talk about with Marcus or with Richie, but she was present throughout, and we got to see those kind of inner workings of like her kind of at the culinary school or the karaoke moment, and the moments that she then had kind of later on with Ibra, with Carmi. So I really appreciated that she had kind of this thread of a journey throughout the season that we got to witness, and I'm so happy for her. I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
Yes. And so then, talking about Tina, I think you have to talk about Ibra, because they are both going through a similar trial as far as, just they are the older people within the beef. Now it is the bear. Ibra is sent to the school too. And Ibra, man, that was rough to watch too. And it's interesting to watch. And as you said, they threaded Tina's story throughout. And then, some characters get a whole episode, and then a character like Ibra, I think it is a choice to watch him quit the culinary school, and then we don't see him again for a while, and then we're feeling what the characters are feeling. Have you heard from Ibra? Where is Ibra?
Yeah.
And then like you pair them up with Tina because those are the two routes you could have took. You could really lean into this change and this opportunity presented to you, or you can, and it's fear that drove Ibra out of the culinary school. But I find by the time we get to the finale, or I think it was the episode before the finale, when he comes back, because that is his home at the end of the day. And I think I like how that, again, is a reoccurring theme throughout, is that this is a home for a lot of these people, despite the chaos, despite all the changes, he feels at home here. What do y'all think about Ibra?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Ibra. Ibra's I'm like, because I'm like gaining like so much confidence in like, you've mentioned the creator's name, whose name escaped me. Is it
Christopher Storer.
Yeah, Christopher Storer. I'm like gaining so much confidence in terms of like their storytelling and their ability to tell like kind of like long arcs. I don't think Ibra's arc is done yet. You know what I mean? I could totally see like season 3, like him being a little more centered, because like, there were like some beats for him, but it did not feel like a complete arc the way like some of these other characters completely got this season. And I'm like obviously think he's like a crucial part of the kitchen, but like wasn't like as connected to his story the way I was like to like even Tina's, and some of our other main characters this season.
Yeah, I think you talked about kind of the pairing of Tina and Ibra, who were both asked to go to culinary, or like sponsored to go to the culinary school, presents the, like you said, the options of you can really lean into a moment to continue to evolve, or the kind of questioning of, okay, I've done all this work up until now, and is he making meaning out of going to culinary school, indicating that like, well, all the work you've done maybe is not as meaningful because you don't have this particular set of skills. And I bring that up because I think, I see, in, say, for like my parents' generation or our parents' generation and older, that sometimes that can be the perspective of like, I know how to cook. I know how to do fill in the blank skill. And for someone to give me feedback, or someone to say like, hey, we want you to go to this training, or we want you to go to this particular thing, sometimes it can be perceived as like, oh, like, does this mean what I've done up until now is not meaningful anymore because I don't have letters after my name, or I don't have a particular degree? And I think it, I just kind of reflected on that as far as Ibra's experience of like, sometimes it is fear, it is like, what happens if I do change? And then I think it's also like meaning making, and what people feel connected to. And clearly, I think his arc, at least where we end it, because I imagine there is more to a story, is what is meaningful to him is making the beef sandwiches. And that is what he's designated within the restaurant, as far as like, the to-go window, the drive-through.
Which I loved. That was he kept a part of the beef.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that like he's not capable of change. It's more of like, how can we, like, what is meaningful to him? How can we continue to allow him to thrive in that way? And take a lead on continuing to do something that he's done for so many years. And so I think it's about like we've talked about how the show kind of frames its characters and how it treats its characters. And what I appreciate is I think there's some thoughtfulness around how he was feeling, that there is that fear, that like how do we make him feel like he is still part of the team, and that what he contributes is something that we really respect and value here. So I liked where at least we have temporarily ended with him, that the photo, which then of course led to some good news for Neil as he was trying to figure out what was going on with the fire system. But even the photo of Tina and Ibra and Mikey, that gave some indication of like, this is the family element, the community that he's created. That was what was important to him, and how can we continue to cultivate that without kind of stepping on kind of his legacy and his skills. So he doesn't have to go to culinary school if that's not kind of part of his journey, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree too. I feel like if this show was in like lesser hands, he would have left for a couple days, then Tina would have found him, and then he would, Tina would give him like this rousing speech of how like we got to like learn new skills or something, and then he would have came back and been great. And like, this is not that show. The show like it stays true to like, I think like just like being real and like that kind of like reality. And I think, as you're saying, Chef Rika, in reality, like some people in those situations would just quit, never come back, never come back to the culinary school. And that's really real, it felt like. And I did like that element of like his storyline this season.
Oh, And just because he quit doesn't mean that he doesn't have anything to contribute. I think,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I reflect on this idea of, I think people have like a negative perception of like quitting, but sometimes intentional quitting, deciding to walk away from something because you know it's not really going to serve you, um, is also important. And so I think that that interaction between Tina and Ibra at the window, where she does like say, "Hey, you know, I think you left for a reason. So what's going on here?" And he was honest about what he was feeling. I think was really special versus what you just like proposed. Like in a different show would have been like, "We need to go, and this is what we're trying to do." Like trying to convince him to like fit himself into something that really just wasn't for him. But it doesn't mean that he still has more to contribute, and I think they
Yeah.
honor that, which does feel really real.
I'm gonna shout out. Y'all been shouting out Ted Lasso. I'm gonna shout out Abbott Elementary that also explores a similar theme when it comes to, you know, in the teaching world. That is a thing that happens so often, and they have an episode that tackles that issue. I'm gonna shout out that it's more raw here
Mm.
than there, but I just want to shout that out. Speaking of
I like
connection,
Abbott Elementary. I don't like pitting them against each other. I'm
I'm not
Ted
pinning them
Lasso.
against, and Io is in both of them too.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yep.
I
So
do. I think you bringing that up. Something that both shows does is there's like multi-generational different experiences, like all these folks coming into a space together, and so they have this space to be able to explore storylines like that. So I think that's pretty cool.
yes. You mentioned connection. Let's get into a character who has found such a deep connection with their craft. Let's talk about Marcus. I think Marcus, is it a stretch to say he might be my favorite character? I don't know.
Only you can decide that.
I don't know. I just loved his journey from season 1, and especially in season 2 as well. I don't know. He was the first person, I think, to listen to Carmy, to really hear what he was saying, and then just become so obsessed with like these donuts in season 1, and doing his own homework, reading all these books, and then he crafts this donut that gets thrown to the floor in season 1, and you're like, damn, all his hard work. And he was like the only one who truly was trying at the time to adjust and evolve, and his work gets thrown to the floor, and he doesn't even get to see the expression on his face. He eats that donut off the floor. Carmy eats that donut and it's great. He's like, fuck. Like, what a great moment. And then fast forward to season 2, they're like, this guy's going places. Let's send him somewhere, and we get this episode, Honeydew, where he pairs with this guy who's just now all over the place, Will Poulter.
Will Poulter.
Funny
He's
enough,
like a heartthrob. Have you guys
he is becoming a heartthrob. Yes.
God, man.
Yes, he's the internet's new boyfriend.
He's the internet's new boyfriend. I don't know if you guys saw the clip where he kind of like shouted out, I guess like African or
the star rating and how they're into consideration. Yeah, that was really that was cool.
Yeah, like just like in an interview, if you're unfamiliar, Chef Grandmaster, we kind of was just like in this interview probably talking about like his experience on The Bear, and somehow it got to the point where he was just shouting out like, I guess like Black chefs not having like enough Michelin stars, or there not being like many across the world. I think it was either like 0 to 2 or something. Restaurants with like a Black chef in the kitchen, having Michelin star. And I was just like, man, this guy's saying all the right things. Like, he's gonna take all the women from everybody. We're all gonna be single this summer because Will Poulter is here, and he obviously looks great in this show. And then
he has had quite the glow up, I will say.
I think I noticed him in what was it? It was the show about with Michael Keaton and I guess maybe you guys didn't see this one. It was I'm totally forgetting the name, but it was about I guess like Oxycontin and like the like
That
Oh,
on
the
Hulu, right?
short series, the limited
yeah,
series.
yeah.
Oh,
But
yes.
anyways, he like appears in that, and he's
Dope
like
sick.
Dope sick, and he's a I guess one of the big company, one of the big pharma people who go to the doctors and tries to sell it to them. So it's like, yeah, you could give them these doses, like it'll be fine. And I was like, oh, that's the guy from, what is it? Are We There Yet? Or
We're the
We're the
Millers.
Millers.
Jesus. Are we there yet
Wait
with
a
Ice
second.
Cube?
There was a lot of shows. There was a lot of movies during that stretch that had the same kind of vibe. It was
What,
like,
the
Are We
road
There
trip?
Like
Yet?
road
We the
road
Millers.
trip comedies.
Yeah, and then there was
What?
Johnson's Family
Hold up.
Vacation.
We're the
There was a
Millers
lot of
and
them.
Are We There Yet at least has a 10-year gap between them.
I don't know. I felt
But for 10 years, there were a lot of road trip comedy
there was
movies.
a lot of those movies, family road trip movies, and I understand they're not a family, right? That's their
Yeah,
bit.
they're not
Yes,
a family.
they're posing.
But
yes.
either way, that one was like was veering when all those ones had already established it. That is not a bad mistake. I stand by it.
Sure.
Anyways, Will Poulter.
Yes. He did I don't want to say he begged to be on the show. But he wanted to be on the show. He campaigned. There you go. Much better word. Thank you, Chef.
Yes, of
He
course.
campaigned to be on the show. And again, this episode, because so we were talking about like in any other show. In any other show, his character would have been a dick to Marcus. He would have been a hard ass. He would have been tough on him. And then there would be a moment where they finally connect and see eye to eye. And I like what the bear chose to do, because watching this episode, I was like, is he gonna be an asshole? Is he being an asshole right now? Or he's like, try it again, mate. And that wasn't the case. It's just a guy who recognizes the humility in terms of craft. And when he said like, I met someone who was better than me, and then now I'm striving to always be better, because there's always going to be someone better than you and whatnot.
He thought he was the best. He thought
he was the best.
Thought he was the best. And then he like worked at a restaurant and he found out he wasn't even close. You know what I mean? And that little analog, that little anecdote, I don't know. That was just like, that felt also just like really good to me. And to your point, he's like, I was going through the same thing. I was like, oh man, he's going to be an asshole. And he's not an asshole, but Marcus still has to earn that friendship. He still has to earn that like kind of the relationship, which seems to be like a running theme of this podcast, is that kind of like earnedness. Like, I think that like carries throughout this season. Like, he's not like super nice to him as soon as he arrives, but he's not like hazing him either, but it was like over time, they slowly like bring different things up. They talk more throughout the episode. And by the end, you're like, wow, they're like best friends. They're BFFs. They like, he has to come visit him, like, and like work with him while he's in America or something like that. So yeah, that was really nice performance.
Yeah, Honeydew and then Forks, which I imagine we'll talk about, were my favorite episodes of the season. And I appreciate Marcus so much, because I think when I watch I see a lot of movies, I watch a lot of television, and I always appreciate when there are characters that are a little more at ease, a little quieter. I think Marcus, there's a care towards his craft, and he always wants to improve, but he's also just like really kind.
Yes.
He's a teddy bear.
Like, he was really kind. And I too agree that I was so glad that the interaction, I think Luca is the name of the character.
Luca, yes.
Good name.
That it was very much like he could see that there was talent and capability, and he wants to cultivate that, not kind of smash it down with the hazing. Because I don't think anything, like, you cannot build love and success out of hating something or putting it down or creating negativity out of it. You want to cultivate it with with care, with thoughtfulness, with challenge. Like you want people to continue to grow, but and I saw that dynamic between Marcus and Luca, where like, okay, like try it again, and keep pushing him, but also doing so out of a place of just like mutual understanding. And I think that anecdote that he then told during their interaction gave you a glimpse of maybe why he treats Marcus in that way of like, yeah, we're all of us are really just kind of on our own journey. You have to make meaning out of that journey. You can't just compare it to another person's and think that you'll be at the same pace or with the same skill or with the same resources, because that's not realistic. So what can you focus on and what can you control is what's happening for yourself and what you're able to contribute and create. And that then leads to, of course, Marcus making his own little dessert. But what a really wonderful episode. I think just being able to step out of the restaurant, we still have the FaceTime moment so that you get a glimpse on to what was happening in Chicago, but just getting to take a character, particularly a Black man, and say, let's get you to travel, let's put you in a learning situation. Even, I'm thinking of the fact, like, I just got my passport this year. Like, I've literally never traveled anywhere outside of the country. And how meaningful it would have been for me at the start of my own journey in my own career if I were afforded opportunities to connect in that way with other professionals, not necessarily even just here in the country, but just like in the world. And I felt that from Marcus, that like he was taking all these pictures and walking around Copenhagen and really taking in this opportunity to not only learn a new skill and hone his craft, but see the world. And so it's a really, really special episode.
And I think too, they ground him, or they anchor him back to Chicago too with his mom and what's going on. And the opportunity, sometimes it's hard to take those leaps when you've got things going on like that. And in the conversation with Sydney, he felt he wasn't, he admitted, saying like he didn't feel he was all in because he was worried about that, and Sydney brought him back down and said, she's okay, she's with I forget who, but it's like, you got to live your life, and you can't let these things that are outside of your control kind of dictate how you navigate this world. And I thought that was also a great moment. And then speaking of Sydney, they have a budding little thing that I think culminates in the finale as well, Marcus and Sydney, which I saw inklings of it in season 1 as well. It's an interesting thing. I think when we talk more about Sydney, that'll we'll get into her headspace. But yeah, Marcus, I don't know. Yeah, I like Marcus and Lionel Boyce, the actor. You know who he's part of Odd Future with Tyler, the Creator.
I did not know that. No, not at all.
So I think his only acting credits are like the Loiter Squad, which is Tyler, the Creator's like really dumb sketch show where they just do really dumb hijinks. So I don't know how he got picked for the Bear, but he's killing it.
I think really all of them like have really bright futures ahead of them. So, but he in particular, I think we're going to see like a lot more of.
Yes.
He's great.
Yes. I cannot see O'Shea Jackson Jr. in this role. Ice Cube.
Why are you taking random shots at O'Shea?
Yes. Why?
Where did that come from?
Why are you catching strays?
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Sorry.
Nobody brought him up.
That's all right. Okay, I think we can hold off on Natalie because I think we're going to talk about the fish episode as a whole. And we'll come back. We'll circle back to Natalie. Should we talk about Sydney now? Is it Sydney's time? Or Fack? You want to talk about Fack?
Not that I have a ton to say about Fack. Great character. Love him.
Did you know that the actor, he's a chef in real life?
I did not know he was a chef, but I saw he was a producer, and I was like questioning, kind of like him. So no, I did not know that. No, I did not.
Yes, and he's like one of the characters who they don't want near. Like, please don't be near the oven to fix the oven, but don't actually cook anything. So I thought that's great. I think what was great, his real name was Neil, which did we know that in the first season, or did I?
Yeah,
just
we knew his name was Neil.
Okay.
Neil Fact.
Oops.
Yeah.
I did like being, and we'll talk about the Fishes episode, but getting to see more about kind of the connection with the family and even his own family. And so it was nice. I don't think they spent too much time in comparison to some of the other side characters building out his his storyline, but it was nice to get like glimpses of like, oh, like there is this really deep connection, and here's some of the reasons why, and that he does have something to contribute, and I think he was doing his best to help with the renovations, and but yeah, I don't know if there's too much there.
Yeah, I guess he has the big win because he figures out the gas.
Yes.
Which is really great, and then he looks amazing in a suit.
He does
in the finale. So I think it just like seeing him kind of like standing amongst the bosses when they're having like their pre family and friends meeting. That was like nice to see that, like, he is a part of the family, you know what I mean? And he is like a valuable member of this ecosystem. And yeah, I don't know, like, if like the overall story arc of this season was like as clean as some of the other ones, but a valuable member of the cast. Wouldn't be the same without him.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I think so Matty Matheson is his name. I think he actually contributes a lot behind the scenes. I pulled up his bio, and I did read this earlier when I was watching season 2, and I forgot. He too has a history of like substance abuse and whatnot, and has been sober since 2013. And I think he contributes. There's a lot of themes as far as like Mikey had a problem with drug abuse and whatnot. I think he adds some, he lets them know, and as you said, he's a chef too, so he gives insight to the kitchen. I think he's giving insight into some of these personal problems that characters are having. So we need him here as a character and behind the scenes. I think he's doing a lot for the show, Matty Matheson. So shout out to him. I think, rounding out kind of the crew of the Bear, there's Sweeps, who didn't get much to do this season, but he's here. That's okay. Do y'all even know who Sweeps is? Y'all know Sweeps?
He's the one who shows up and is the witness to
the apology.
Yep, Richard's apology.
Yes, yeah. Correct. Yes.
Which is that was a funny inclusion. I like that though.
That was funny. Hope to see more of him, but I'm okay that he didn't have a big thing here. Cicero's in and out, and obviously we'll get to him too when we talk about Fishes. Should we talk about Sydney before we get into
let's get to the mains. Yeah, let's get to the mains.
All right, let's talk Sydney. Did you know about Io before this show? She's been around.
I did not know about her, and now it feels like she's everywhere, and I'm happy.
Yeah,
for her.
I'm rooting for her. Yeah.
You know what? I'll let me start here. All right, I have to confess, I didn't really connect with her performance in season 1, and it's like, and I've like done a lot of thinking about it because like, spoiler alert, I now completely done a 180. I was just wrong. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I wasn't connecting with it. I was just wrong. And, for whatever reason, I would watch her in season 1, and I was just like, what is she doing? Like, what is this performance? You know what I mean? And I was just like unable to kind of like wrap my mind around it. And you know what? After doing like some reflecting and then going into the season and thinking about her performance in season 2, I kind of think it's like, I think it's been like kind of like, and I want to like word this carefully and make sure I'm like saying this right. But like, I think like I had like been conditioned to expect like only certain performance from like, I think Black women in particular. You know, in the sense of like whether it's like, you know, unfortunately, like either being like a bit louder or like more subservient, and you know, or like just like certain like stereotypes and sort of things that have been like depicted in like pop culture and stuff like that. That when I saw her performance in season 1, I was just like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, and I couldn't even think of like a good one-on-one comparison to kind of like pinpoint like what she was doing. And after kind of like coming to that conclusion, like, oh, like, you know, like it is different, and that's like a great thing. I've like completely, as I said, done a 180 where I'm just like, she's like carving out her own lane. You know what I mean? Like this kind of character who's a bit awkward, a bit odd, but very ambitious and like, you know, like wants great things, and but it's like confident at the same time, and just like it's like has all these layers. And now I like watch and I'm just like, you know, I'm like, it's like a fantastic performance. I want AOE to be ready to call me like if she's ever in New York and wants to like just hang out with the cool kid, me being. So yeah, no,
Way to plug yourself.
I think she's cool. I think she's like, I think one, her performance now, as I said, 180 on performance. I think she's great. And I think in particular this season, I think she does like, and we're going to get to Carmy, but I think she really does a fantastic job of just carrying the weight of everything at all times. You know what I mean? Like, we'll get to why it feels like she's shouldering it more than Carmy is in this season. But I think that's like a tough thing. And like all her interactions and all her kind of like actions that she's like kind of taking throughout this season, whether it's like bouncing around the restaurants, seeing them close, speaking to her father. You know, we spoke about Marcus, like, and that's where I think the awkwardness comes in. I'm just like, come on, like Mark, come on. And like, it's just like, I don't even know. What do you guys think is happening there? You think she's just like blind to Marcus's advances, like, or she's just like not interested? It's like, you know, it was like, it felt like she was kind of surprised when Marcus kind of like not even asked her out, kind of like tiptoed close to potentially asking her out. You know what I mean? Like she just kind of like froze up and like kind of short circuited, which I think once again is great.
I think she's she's tunnel vision. She comes, I think, you know, again, comparing to season one, she comes in here, she knows about Carmy, she knows about his rep. She's like, man, I gotta work for this guy. You know, this guy's going places. You know, I want to go places. And as you said, she carved her own lane. She inserts herself. However, I don't think she thought she would be inserting herself into the beef, which was a hellhole in season 1. You know, she wants to learn from Carmy, and now she's got to learn from all these other aspects of what a kitchen life could be, whether it's coming into an already established environment, you know, dealing with people who've been doing this for years before her, but may not have her know-how. And I think you watch her adjust to these things. Like she's trying to pick up things from Carmy, but she really can't because he's over here having a shouting match with Richie. She's over here trying to, you know, low-key mentor Tina and whatnot, but also like learn from Tina at the same time. And, you know, when it comes to Marcus, she's just driven. I got no time for this. You know, any kind of subtle advances, it better be like, it can't be subtle because I'm going to tune it out. You know, the idea of flirtation is so off radar right now that, you know, it will come as a surprise because viewers watching them, I think I saw it coming, the eventual asking out and whatnot. But then she's like, hello,
she short circuits. You know what I mean? It's not like she cuts off the advance and she's like, oh, sorry, I have to like focus on my work. It's just like, she's like, where in the world did this come from?
Right. I'm like, hello.
Which is funny and humorous, but yeah.
You just FaceTime him in a different time zone. I don't do that with anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, they're so cute. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So, you know, come season 2, you know, yeah, we'll get into why she's carrying it more than Carmy. But like, she's like, this is it. We're starting a restaurant, you know? I no longer have to accidentally serve my Coke braised beef brisket or whatever to a reviewer to get some cred here, you know. This is it. This is my time. This is my time. So I got to do everything I can to prove that everything I've done up until this point was worth it. So I get that, and I see that as her and the character. And again, we'll come back to the finale, but I'm with it. I'm with her. I'm with her. I see it. Now I am still rooting for her and Marcus, but I get it. I get the drive. I get the drive.
Yeah, I will say, Chef Cooper TV, I appreciate your reflection on kind of some of the reasons why maybe you didn't feel as connected to her performance initially. And I think that's something that I clocked and really appreciate it. Being an awkward and hyper-focus driven Black girl myself, that's literally why I got a PhD, is like, there is this, like, you do have these blinders up where you're so focused on what you're trying to achieve that you don't always consider the things that happen outside of that, whether it is relationships with other people, platonically, romantically, whatever it may be. And because you're really just wanting this thing to work out that you work so hard for. And I really appreciate that there is this element of, like, she certainly cares about other people, but sometimes doesn't know how to express that. And even like the moment that we talked about in episode 1 of like her telling Tina, like, hey, I want you to be my sous chef. Like, even she was awkward at that moment of like, Tina was so emotional and so like grateful. And she's like, okay, we're hugging, this is what we're doing now. And I just appreciate, because I think there's context to that. We see the relationship with her and her father, where her father wants something different for her. That we know that she lost her mother early on. And so we have some context to why certain interactions may be a little different for her in comparison to others. And I just really appreciate being able to see a character like that feel kind of representative of like some of what my experiences have been like, some of my colleagues, of like you have a goal, you have a dream, and you really want to realize that. And the journey to get towards there is not as easy as you hope that it will be. And so much of Sydney's arc, at least in season 2, is like having to try to be a partner with Carmy in this endeavor. And Carmy is struggling with like, how does he balance his own life? And so of course that then leads into, because he doesn't know how to balance his life, there is a lot that falls into Sydney to take responsibility over. I think, episode 3 was really her episode where they were supposed to go together to go in to different restaurants or around the city of Chicago and figure out like what is in the air, what are people eating, what are people creating, and he backed out. We'll talk about some of the reasons why, as far as his budding relationship with Claire and what some of that connection looks like. And so Sydney's just on her own. And so she's going to all these places, eating all this food, which I thought was really well crafted, by the way. I loved being able to see all the food, and I loved the interplays of like her trying to come up with her own dish. So we see this like pasta falling, and so I thought it was really creative. And in addition to that, she has a lot of questions about herself and her partnership with Carmy of like, people, different restaurant tours. I don't know if I'm saying that. And chefs saying like, hey, like, what's the percentage? What's the breakdown? Did we sign papers? What's official? And she's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, the weight just keeps coming.
Yeah. Because I think so much of her is not only like, do I want to realize my dream? I thought I had in the past, I failed. And I don't want to do this again. And it not work out. And so I think there's a lot writing, I think, at least for my own personal journey, I've had to like, yes, I'm trying to be successful, but also that is not the only thing that I am. And I think that feels like maybe what Sid's journey will be at some point along the show is like, yes, you can be this really successful chef and really cultivate wonderful food that people will love. But you're not only a chef. And I think that's kind of then relates to Carmy's own journey of like, he's trying to figure that out, is because that's also all he's known. Is being the chef, is working in these high intense environments and not cultivating a life outside of that. And so it's fascinating the different ways that they're kind of dealing with that life balance and responsibilities and trying to be a person, but also trying to be a business owner and trying to be, executive chef, etc. So I just really appreciated getting to see Sid as a character in both seasons, but particularly kind of where she's struggling for this season.
Yeah, I think on like a scene by scene basis, like it just like felt every moment, like as I keep saying, you could just like feel like kind of like the apprehension, a bit of the fear, kind of like the weight of like kind of like this restaurant success on her shoulders, kind of like as we were, we keep alluding to like Carmi's role in this, and it's hard to speak towards like Sid's character and her arc in the season without speaking towards Carmi. It's like, just like more and more kind of just continues to fall on her. And I kind of think like, as I keep saying, it's like complete 180. I kind of think it might be like the best performance of the season. Like, I think like if I was like, I don't know if betting's the right word or like the right framework, but I think this might be the most deserving performance of like maybe the Emmy Award win. Because I really think she's doing something really special in this season, in particular. Like just like on a like every moment, I feel like just like her facial expressions, like the way she's interacting with everybody when she's short-circuiting with Marcus, it's like her interactions with her father, bringing up her mother, like there's like just so much happening, like kind of it feels like running through her mind at all times. And yeah, I think just like a really special performance and like a really special actress that I'm excited to continue seeing to grow and like kind of take off from here.
I would advise y'all, if y'all have not, there was a Hollywood Reporter table done with Io, Cheryl Lee Ralph, Elle Fanning, Dakota Johnson, not Dakota, no, sorry. God dang it. No, Natasha Lyonne, no, Elle Fanning, Jenna Ortega, and oh God, I'm doing my girl dirty. My girl from Reservation Dogs.
Oh, nice.
It was
hottest actresses.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Devry Jacobs. You should listen to that. I was on there. Give some great insight. Kind of. I am in tuned for her career now. I will be watching very closely.
I'm invested. Yes,
I'm invested.
If I was, if you could put like stock into actors and actresses, I would put a lot into her.
Oh, I mean, she's a writer too. I don't think.
She's an executive producer. Yeah,
she's an executive producer.
Or producer, maybe not executive. I don't know.
No. She's a co-executive producer.
Nice.
I believe they're bringing her onto the writing team for season 3. Don't quote me. At least I think I picked that up in the interview. No. She, as much as Sydney is invested in the show. I mean, within the show, I was invested in the show. So no. Excited to see more from Sydney. And I'm just gonna throw it back to season 1 real quick. When she shows up at the restaurant and Richie's like, "Come on, Sydney, get in here." It's slowly becoming her family as well. I also like her interactions with Natalie, like when she made Natalie the omelet.
Oh yeah, once again, just nice. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, just like as much as this show is like high intense and pressurized, it's like I think to Chef Rika's point early on, just like it takes time to be like, let's spend like 3 minutes like having like a nice kind of like moment that like just warms you a little. Like they pretty much give you an omelet every episode. There's like a moment where they like hand you a really nice, that was a good looking omelet too, like a really nice
oh, when she said she put potato chips in that omelet,
sour cream and onion. Yeah,
I feel like I need to try it.
I think I made an omelet the next day after watching that episode. Oh, I get really into cooking when I watch cooking shows. Like immediately after finishing this, I put on the latest season of Hell's Kitchen in the background whenever I was cooking, because then I get in like this cooking show frenzy.
I made a pub sub like I think in the midst of watching this.
You
show.
did a homemade pub sub. Very
Homemade
good.
pub sub. So.
I was jealous.
Oh, homemade. He made
not
it in
Florida
New
people.
York. You can make it in
Looks
normal.
really good. Well, I don't have.
You need to find the right ingredients.
What, you
I
don't have
finally found a
chicken
place.
tenders?
You're
I
just
think
putting
the
a lot of
bread's the
stock
hardest
in my energy levels
Yeah.
and my willingness to make I want someone else to make it for me.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Sure. All right, before we get into Carmi, and we could talk about our boy Richie, and I guess at this point we could start kind of interweaving the Fishes episode. Richie, Yvonne Moss Backrack, I hope I'm saying that right. Chef Hooper TV, is this your favorite character? Is this your man?
Man,
Is
yes.
it the Taylor
But
Swift
here's
for
the
you? Is
thing.
it Taylor Swift?
Once again, 180s. So when it came
180?
to-
What?
well, no, I'm saying like when it came to Richie in season 1.
Can you not
It's
see the
not-
seeds early on?
Well, it's not like I got him, but like, so it wasn't like I was like bumping up against his performance. I got his performance. I found his character annoying. You know what I mean? I was just like, which is kind of like what he's going for. So that's where I'm like, well, I guess it's a good performance in that sense. But I was just like, man, he just seems to be like dragging the restaurant down. Like, you know what I mean? He's just like kind of like bumping up against Sid, who I like, you know, who I kind of like was like, she wants what's best. And you're kind of like holding the restaurant back and all this stuff. And I think those like kind of like feelings were like rooted into how I like perceived him. So even when he had like nice moments, I was always just like, and then in this season, and so I mean, Chef Rika's background, that episode is easily probably one of my favorite episodes of television in a while. I mean, and we kind of been speaking towards arcs of the season. The arc of that episode in particular, where like Richie goes in and he's old Richie. He's still like kind of like bumping up against everybody. He's just like doesn't quite want to change. You know what I mean? He wants to like kind of want to walk in and like be the coolest guy in the restaurant immediately. And they're like, they kind of like slowly but surely, not necessarily like break him down, but kind of just open his eyes and like a new way of like kind of like acting and kind of like carrying yourself and like moving through the world. And just like the arc of that episode that does culminate and hit. Well, the thing is like they play like the Taylor Swift song, and I don't think it's that episode, but in an earlier episode he mentions like
He's been like, trying to get Taylor Swift tickets.
He's trying to get the Taylor Swift tickets, you know. And so, you know, and he tells his daughter, I think he's on the phone, and he's just like, what does he say? He says something like,
Daddy loves Taylor Swift, he just needed a break.
Which is just so funny. Because, you know, me and my long lost brother, like we grew up, we were probably already like 10, 11, 12 when like our little sister was like kind of coming of age, and like that kind of like youth, like 4 or 5 age, where you're just like only want to hear something on repeat all the time. I think we listened to so much High School Musical, even though we liked High School Musical, but it was just like whenever we were in the car, like it had to be on. So I just like kind of understand, like
similar to my upbringing with my long lost brother, but I don't recall playing High School Musical on repeat. That doesn't sound right. So
our little sister, it was either High School Musical
for her maybe. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what little sister you're referring to.
No, I thought you were saying us.
No, she wanted to listen to it all the time, nonstop.
Oh, okay, that's fair. And
that kind of like, and I could just see like Richie having to deal with a young daughter.
Yes,
like,
correct. Okay, all right.
Anyways, you know, just like that moment where they kind of like have already played the seeds about Taylor Swift, and then you can hear the song starting to build, and you're like, and I'm prepared for like us to hear Taylor sing, and kind of like it kind of culminated in like this Richie's kind of like epiphany about like how he wants to be different now, he wants to change. and they just doubled down with him like jamming to it, singing the words like as he's like flying through the streets of Chicago. Put the biggest smile on my face, you know, because it's just like, and once again, the way he like the way the show earns this moment and the way he kind of earns this moment for himself, where he really does step up at that restaurant. He really like learns to kind of be a great cog in their system, and becomes and has his eyes open and learns to change his ways. Just like culminating in that moment with like him singing and blaring the Taylor Swift song, just so good. And you know, I am a fan of Taylor Swift, and so maybe that like played a role, but it was like more of everything happened around it that really made that moment sing for me, and him sing.
Yeah, I would agree with your sentiment in terms of like favorite episodes of TV this year. And you know, there's been a lot of talk around Succession and what it accomplished this past season. And yeah, I think this was just so special. I think the entire arc, and similar to like I liked Richie. Like I found him amusing in terms of what his role was in the show as part of the restaurant, his relationship with others, the kind of tumultuous relationship with him and Sid, and you know, getting some of the context around, you know, having this daughter and really wanting things to work out with his ex-wife. And we get some additional context to that in the Fishes episode, which I appreciated that they kind of happened back to back, because we got a little bit of Richie's context around like what his relationship with Mike was. You know, the looking at his relationship with his ex as they were about to have a child, because she was pregnant at the time, and his desire even then, and that was a couple years prior to, of course, the Forks episode, of like, I want to make something of myself. I want to contribute something. I want my life to mean something and the work I do to mean something. And it feels like I'm kind of just like floundering while trying to support my best friend who's clearly struggling. And so he still has that same attitude at the very beginning of Forks, of like, basically, you know, his perspective is Carmy is sending me off for a week because he just wants to get, you know, get me out of the restaurant. And he did say that in a phone call to Carmy, that like, you just want to get rid of me. And I imagine that's probably yes, that there is some element of like, Richie, we just need to get you out of the space so we can get some stuff accomplished. But also, I genuinely believe, as we see throughout the second season, that Carmy just wants him to grow, evolve, and see why we're doing what we're doing. Unfortunately, Carmy does not take that same sentiment for himself. There is a lots of self-sabotaging that occurs for him, but he does want the best for everybody else, and for them to be able to realize whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish in their life. And so we see that with Richie, of it's kind of a joke to him at the start of like, why am I shining all these forks? But over time, and over that week, he gets to see why people care about food service as an art form, as a craft, that it isn't not necessarily just about the food, it's about giving people a good experience. I think where the light kind of flipped for him was that conversation around like preparing for the night, and saying like, we need to, these dishes need to be served, you know, there's a smudge, the smudge is not okay. You know, we have people coming in who've been on wait lists for years, and shout out even that couple who, one was like a teacher, and they were so excited about coming to this restaurant. They're like, you know, free of charge. We're covering their check. We want to give them the best experience possible. Because it's true, some folks will go kind of throughout their life really wanted to experience something, and it may be possible, may not be. And in this case, they really can give people a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so they want to make the best out of that, and they really care about that. And I think that's something that spoke to Richie, is like, oh, we are here to just bring some kind of joy to folks, and I can play a part of that. I think him, like, I was like cheering so hard when he was running for the pizza, like just this idea of really checking in on folks, and like, okay, we heard somebody is in Chicago, is about to leave, has never had to eat dish pizza, and so immediately kind of attending to that. And he could see that there is more than just kind of things feeling too fancy or things feeling really complacent. Like there's a middle ground here where we can really serve people and really work together and make something out of what we're doing. And I think that's what spoke to him. And then Olivia Colman's introduction here. She keeps popping up and I love it.
She keeps popping up. She's everywhere.
As the executive chef, and even them having a conversation of like, particularly around the mushrooms, of like, why are you doing all of this? She was peeling the mushrooms. She's like, yeah, ultimately the message was like, I want people to feel like we care, that they can tell that we put effort into creating this for them, because they deserve that. And it's something as simple as peeling a mushroom. And so I think that also spoke to him, that that he has a part to play, that, it's not always just about the food, it's about the people too.
And piggybacking off of, Olivia Colman, Chef Terry, she shared her personal journey about how she almost gave up and she fell into a depression.
Yep.
And then, an opportunity presented itself. I think she found the lease for the restaurant, and then poured her savings into it and whatnot, and then to show Richie that it's never too late. It's never too late to restart. It's never too late to bounce back. And I feel that was so integral for his personal growth because, in season 1, he was the rock that was resisting the change that the beef was going through. This is Michael's restaurant. He was going to hold on to it as much as he could. Carmy was coming in, changing everything, and what he felt was disrespectful to his brother and whatnot. Mind you, this is actually what Mikey wanted, was to Carmy to come in and do his thing because he has faith in him. And that faith then turns into Carmy having faith in Richie because his brother loved this man. Let me give him a chance. I'm sure, yes, he did want to get him out the restaurant, but I love the interaction with Terry where she said Carmy believes in you. And the fact too, and I love this episode. Yeah, I think it might be one of the greatest TV episodes ever. When you see Carmy's face on the wall, and that Carmy worked here or was under tutelage by Chef Terry. Him and Luca both taught or went here or worked here, and it's like, if Carmy sends you here, that means he cares. He's not trying to get you out the restaurant. And oh my gosh! And then again, a part of I've been saying this: the bear feels real. Never once did I think this is a new Richie. This is just an improved Richie.
Yes.
He's not doing anything different. He is a people's person. That's why he worked the front. He didn't work in the kitchen. He worked the register. He knows the neighborhood. He knows the community. He's a people person. And they
he
said,
didn't learn how to make a great souffle overnight. You know what I mean? Like, this was always in him. And to Chef Rica's point, like the episode before, is it called Fishes?
Fishes, yes.
Like you kind of see that ambition, that kind of like his desire to want more, it's like, it just seemed like it was beaten out of him at some point. And this isn't, this episode, Forks isn't like him discovering that like wants to be an ambitious person. It's like, oh, he remembers. It's like he refines that within himself. So it just like comes out again. And so, Chef Grandmaster, I don't know if you have much more to say, but I was just going to add quickly that I love this episode. It's fantastic. But at the same time, I don't think this is what made Richie my favorite character by the end of the season. It's how this episode plays out the rest of the season and like how it impacts, like where he's just like, I wear suits now. He says that line like 5 times.
I saw a tweet of somebody saying that.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, he must have watched episode 7 of The Bear.
Yeah, I don't know who tweeted that, but it sounds like a good tweet. I
liked it. I think
I think I just like just like that, and then how it culminates in the season finale.
In the finale.
Yes.
really multiple ways.
Yes.
In multiple ways. I'll save one of them for our big Carmy sesh, what we've been building up to this entire pod. But just like in terms of the way that like he steps up and he becomes like the person he was like kind of like learning to be in this episode, and the way that plays out. And he kind of like steps up for Sid, who kind of like has to take a moment to like kind of breathe in that episode. Was just so cool. And like the choices he made with like Sid's dad not drinking and him bringing out like the soda pop kind of thing. Yeah, like that's earned from what they did in this episode, and so just great stuff.
Yeah, no, that was it. Yeah, I didn't have much more. Yeah, like you said, everything, the culmination is not the end of this episode. The culmination happens much later, which I think is great storytelling. And we see this all the time in storytelling, where like the character has the moment where it's okay, it's your time to shine. Are they gonna do it? Are they gonna fail? Yeah, so we'll get there. But yes, Richie, yeah, probably the best growth from in the entirety of the series. Oh God, and it's interesting how the finale ends. We'll see how that trickles into season 3. Right. Okay. Carmy, and here we can now get into fishes and get into the finale, since Carmy's our last person. And Nat.
And Claire.
And yes, of course, Claire. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where to begin? Do you want to start us off with the little Carmy?
Okay. What backstory on Carmy? Youngest of the Berzatto trio. Probably the most in his head about everything of the Berzattos.
Oh yeah, he's just kind of broken, to be honest.
Right.
Like, I say that with love.
Sure.
He's just like he's like he's a real person. He's like a human. But he's like something along the lines of like, whether it's like the trauma, his family, his childhood, his losing his brother so recently. It's just like he's been through a lot, and like kind of interacts with people kind of.
He's an awkward duck.
Yeah, yeah.
But like he's if pushed too hard, then he's like a mean, awkward duck.
Like, what are the mean ones? The geese? Are geese the mean ones?
Geese can be mean, or swans can be mean too.
Swans? Yeah.
So maybe not a duck. Yeah.
I like geese.
Sure.
Goose vibes.
He's a goose. So what? He's the culinary legend. Right? He was in Copenhagen, for a time, where he was studying, and he's not trying to be with the family issues. He's trying to separate himself from all that. I guess he doesn't feel necessarily the love from his family. He just feels this like perpetual angst, and I don't know, they just drive his anxiety up the roof. He wants to be away from it all, do his thing in the culinary world. So comes back that Christmas. Here we are, dishes. We learn plenty about Carmy. It seems like he's been this way his whole life.
Before we get you're about to get into fishes.
I guess I'm taking it back to fishes, and then to season 1, and then to season 2.
Okay, I was just gonna add, this season in particular, like early on, I think episode 1, he has like a conversation, I think, with Richie about like kind of like what makes him happy, like whether it's like I don't know if it's about like hobbies or like like what brings him happiness, and that question I think permeates like throughout like this season in particular, about like what do you like outside of this world, you know what I mean? Yeah. And as you're saying about like the family, well, his relationship with his family,
it's definitely not the family.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
Well, I think I feel like a lot of Carmi's journey it's even in season 1 too is he this culinary part is trying to assist him from getting away from the family part. The culinary thing was also anxiety provoking. And with the death of his brother, now he has to go back to the family part, to like the human person part of him, not just like being a kitchen machine. And so as a result, you have kind of what his relationships look like, trying to navigate putting together this restaurant in season 1 and 2. And now season 2 is the introduction of like, can I have a life outside of this? Can I continue to cultivate like my relationship with my sister and with Richie and with all the various staff members, but also potentially love interest? And is that possible for me? And I think that's the big question. It is, but I don't think he thinks it is. And so as a result, continues to get into his own way. And something that I frequently speak to the people I work with about is, when your brain has been in one particular mode for so long, and survival mode, whether within your family or within your workplace or a combination of both or whatever, when things start to shift and feel like they're working out around you, whether you get into a healthy relationship or in a good job, or it feels like it is fake, that there's this like, no, this is not going to work out because it hasn't before in the past. So where's the catch? And so folks are always looking for things to go wrong. That ultimately becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that it does go wrong, and not because anything is fundamentally wrong with them. It's just that this expectation that it will. And so we see that kind of be realized in Carmi, but it's just this lack of like, you can't have it. You can have relationships outside of work, and you could be a person that is not a chef, and you could be a chef, and those things can happen at the same time. And I think we get context as to why it feels difficult for him out of Fishes. So.
Yeah, I think you mentioned love interest, so I think this is like a good time to
just drop the ball, drop it, go do it.
Well, this season brought in like, I think she was like the only new character to like the overall kind of like real close
to the main cast.
Main cast. Yeah. Or recurring cast. Claire, who, and
Claire Bear.
I want to use this moment to speak about like the entire kind of like casting of the show. I think the show is so well casted.
It absolutely is.
Everybody just like fits so well within each other. They like interact with each other so well, like, which I think is like, a hard thing to kind of like capture when you're just choosing people. But Claire in particular, one, she like looks like a classic kind of
girl next door.
Girl next door. Yep, exact. Took the words right out of my mouth. Like kind of like a girl you could kind of see like, oh, she's like on the medical track or whatever, and like so she's still kind of like potentially still in the area, and like their first interaction in, I think, the grocery store, it was just like chemistry, electricity as soon as they started talking to each other. I think like the dialogue between the two and kind of just like the way they kind of looked at each other, I was just like, I'm so on board, and I just met them. It's just like kind of like obviously it's not a quote unquote meet cute because they've known each other for a while, but I think they established their connection, there being history right off the bat, and kind of just like made me care for their dynamic very quickly in a short amount of time, which I thought was like super impressive. They didn't have season 1 to kind of like plant the seeds there. It was just like from the get-go, like here's this new character, and Carmi's kind of like finding like maybe something he does care about. And the rest of the season kind of explores, what does that mean? How does Carmi react with that? Like, how does he deal with that? And once again, we'll get to the culminating moments, but I just really liked what they did with Carmi's arc this season, and especially like with Claire.
Yeah. So Molly Gordon is the actress, and she's popped up in a couple things, and each time she's popped up, I'm like, yeah, like she I don't know if it's her agent or a combination of her and her agent working together, but she's found some really good roles where when I think of like if you give me a description of like what this character is embodying, she really feels that, and she's been enjoyable to watch. So she's been in things like I know she has a film that she directed that's coming out soon, but
Oh yeah, Theater Camp. I did not know she was directing that, and she wrote it.
That's she wrote it.
She wrote it
trailer,
too.
I've only seen the trailer. It looks great. I'm very interested.
But she was in Shiva Baby, which I believe is still on HBO Max. Highly recommend. Short watch, also kind of anxiety provoking. She was really the love interest in that film. She was in Booksmart. So
who's she in Booksmart?
She is AAA Annabelle, the sort of like who the main characters perceive as a rival, but she's really not.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so she's popped up. I think she's done some TV work as well. But each time that I see her, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly who I kind of envision. And she does such a really wonderful job. And I felt the same way here too, as far as like this person who has history with Carmy, who has her own like things that she's trying to accomplish, but there is a lot of care for Carmy, and not just like as a person that she's interested in romantically, but I think genuinely as a person. That I think the Fishes episode comes out of, we learn in the next episode of like or in a future episode I should say, I can't remember if it was 7 or 8, where I think it was 8 actually, Carmy makes a comment to Sydney of like, me and Claire were talking and I was reflecting back on this time that there was a family dinner and my mother kind of ran the car through the living room. And so it was from him being able to have like vulnerable conversations with her, and I think it's a testament to kind of who she is as a person, that that she wants to have those conversations, that she cares about kind of his well-being and his own success and his own his personal journey and what he's wanting to accomplish. And so yeah, I enjoyed the introduction of like what I think Carmy perceives as a challenge, and not in a way of like, oh, will I get the girl? More so of like, how do I hold this relationship that I value with this restaurant, this career that I'm really trying to build? And I don't think I can do both.
I love that. I love exactly what you just said. The conflict isn't will he or will they or won't they? You know what I mean?
He has the girl. The girl has him.
Kind of they like blow past that, and it's like, how does he deal with having her? And well, he ends up failing. But it's just like, I think that also kind of ties into how I was impressed by their dynamic and like how it was portrayed, because it's like, once again, like a lesser show would have been like, oh yeah, like, will they get together or won't they get together? Instead it was like, wanted to explore something very different and like, what comes out of that.
Yeah, so as I told y'all, I watched Fishes. That was the last episode of the I don't know, I fell asleep, I guess, through Fishes. And
that's crazy.
Hulu does this. No, like I fell asleep, and I maybe I fell asleep through a couple of episodes. And then Hulu does this thing where like it'll stop playing like in the credits. So I finished the episode before Fishes, credits start rolling, and then Hulu does this thing where it'll pick up right where you left off. So that means it left off at the credits of Fishes. So I was like, oh, this is one long credit sequence. So then I got to Forks, and then I was like, wait a minute, I thought I woke up in the middle of the night to John Mulaney. Where's the John Mulaney episode? Did I miss that? So then upon the finale, I was like, damn, I missed the whole episode. So either way, so get in the context of, they've been trying to put Carmy together with Claire for the longest time. I found that really intriguing because, as far as, the relationships Carmy has with, say, Richie and Mikey, they're not so great. And it's like, these guys genuinely cared about Carmy. Just maybe they didn't know how to express it to Carmy's liking. So, to hear that they've been trying to put him and Claire together for such a long time, and then, And that's the thing. Carmy, I think Carmy as a character, when it comes down to it, he's got a lot of trust issues. And that's trust within other people, trust within his relationships, and then ultimately the downfall of it all was trust within himself. Because Claire is great. Claire is great for him. And again, it's such a real show because you got a career focus driven Sydney being like, wait a minute, is this our restaurant, or is this like, why is Claire in this now? Do I need to run things by Claire?
That's like, no, I think one, I wanted to just bounce off the 2 points you made. One, the Fishes episode, in which, we have to see the family in the past, and Mikey comes back, played by John Bernthal, who's also been in a lot of places recently. He's also fantastic, though.
He's great.
I like to point out John Bernthal and Ebon, aka Richie, they
Worked
co-starred
together
Punisher.
in
Yeah.
Punisher.
Oh, I've never seen Punisher. Don't know if I'll get around to it, but
Season
Yeah,
one is
no,
I
great.
think the second season.
No, first season is good.
First season, gotcha. What I liked about what you were saying, like Claire, was who they were trying to get together, 5 years prior. Is that the
5 years?
timeline of
5
Fishes?
years prior.
Is what I liked about that was that it's not once again another kind of heartthrob. Jeremy Allen White is become the internet's boyfriend's last season, and still very much seen as a very attractive person. It's not oh, he's out and about and some girl happens to come across him. It's no, there's really only one. You know what I mean? It's kind of Claire, and if it's not Claire, it's nobody. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the kind of 5 years prior, where it was 5 years ago was Claire. This time it's Claire. If it doesn't work out with her, he's gonna be alone. And I think that kind of I think they're not yelling that at you, but I kind of feel that's what the kind of implication is, and kind of what makes it so heartbreaking, and kind of when we're gonna get there. When it doesn't potentially work out, you kind of feel oh, that's it for Carmy. Carmy's back to only being focused on the restaurant, because Claire's great, and from a characterization perspective, maybe you don't want your character to kind of be perfect all around, but I think in the context of this story and in this world, it's man, Claire's perfect for Carmy. It's so clear and obvious to everybody. He talks stuff back, and back is dude, come on. And even the 5 years ago, everybody's dude, come on. She took off her glasses or something when they talk about her.
That was me.
So, well, it was just
it was funny.
good,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, she's clearly an attractive person, but then there was oh yeah, but it took her a while to get here or something like that, or something is the implication there. And that was just you could just see the bros of that kind of family saying stuff like that. And yeah, where it culminates, I guess we can open up Pandora's box, right? Is it time? Or do you have more to say, Shepard?
Oh, I mean, it was really probably going to just open the box in terms of we've been talking around Fishes, but so this was a surprise to me, but it's an hour-long flashback.
Yeah.
And it has a stacked cast of not only
super stacked. Oh my god.
Not only the folks that we've been familiar with, as far as John Bernthal coming back to play Mikey, but we get, I'm pulling up, Jamie Lee Curtis is playing Donna.
Yeah.
The mother.
Fresh off of an Academy Award win.
Yes, Bob Odenkirk as the on-again, off-again boyfriend of Donna.
Legend.
We get Sarah Paulson as the cousin. John Mulaney as
what's an
Sarah
FX show without Sarah Paulson somewhere involved?
That's true. John Mulaney is the boyfriend of Sarah Paulson's character. We get it is just a stacked cast. We walk into this house, and it's is it Christmas, Thanksgiving, a holiday?
I think it's right before Christmas, and they're celebrating.
Oh yeah, Christmas. I think you're right.
Yeah, and they're celebrating the fish, and it's supposed to be
Christmas
seven fishes. Yeah.
7 fishes. Yeah.
And so you walk into this house, and again, I was watching this episode thinking, I it was about the 20-minute mark where I was like, usually they'd be starting to wrap up by now. And I paused it. I was like, oh shit, this is an hour. And it is just chaos. And you could see where a lot of the energy, particularly from season 1, where it comes from in terms of Carmy, because it is his mother who we can assume has a substance use problem in terms of like at least drinking, as she's drinking wine throughout, cooking like this elaborate meal. And the kitchen is a mess and it's chaotic. And we actually get some insight too on Donna and Natalie's relationship, whereby, they keep telling Natalie, don't ask if she's okay, And I think a lot of Natalie's, we saw some of her arc as well, but similar to Tina, she was kind of through line more so than getting like her own episode. But if anything, Fishers maybe gave us the most insight, and the finale of, she loves her mother and she wants to prove from her mother. And so much of the episode shows like Donna rebuffing that. Like, I don't want you to help. I don't want you to be kind of in this space right now. Even bringing up the reason why her nickname is Sugar. Like, there is this underpinning of, like, it's supposed to be a joke, right? Like, I think in other family environments, we call her Sugar because of this, haha, very funny. It feels kind of like mean-spirited. Like,
everybody sees it as a cute nickname, but then the context behind the actual nickname, right?
Yeah, and particularly when I think of how like Donna perceives it, like, it doesn't feel like it's cutesy. It doesn't feel like it's a joke. Like, it feels, because of we see what their relationship dynamic is. And so you just get this hot mess of preparation for dinner and dinner, whereby like Mikey's going through his own particular struggles with substance use, and I would say probably likely mental health. If I were to give you like my quick like psychologist opinion, we got a lot of mood disorders and personality stuff going on here. And so he's having his own struggles as far as like his place in the world and what he wants to accomplish and the success of his business or lack of success of his business. And we have Bob Odenkirk's character, who's kind of an antagonist of like, you never finish anything, you're not accomplishing anything, you tell the same jokes over and over. And so there's this tension between the two of them, and we can assume that some of that tension is because Bob Odenkirk is like on again, off again with Donna, so the Jamie Lee Curtis character, and like is almost a pseudo replacement of the father that we've never met, who is assumed dead. And so you just have
we can only assume it's played by Brad Pitt.
Oh no, what? Brad Pitt?
I don't know. I don't just say another big actor. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of time to make a joke. Continue.
And so you just see where a lot of Carmy's anxiety comes from, why he has not been home in so long, and I make comments about that of like, we haven't seen you in so long, it's great to have you here, and why haven't you been around? And well, this is a fucking shit show. That's why I haven't been around.
This is why I want to go back to Copenhagen. And
like,
they blew up when he said that.
Yeah, and so you just get this dynamic of seeing, and what felt so interesting, and I don't know about you all, is like, I have been at a dinner like that, where the people aren't throwing forks, but they're definitely throwing words. And you just feel, depending on who you are in the scenario, at least for me, I was kind of one of the, whether it be a Natalie or a Sarah Paulson character or something, where I'm just kind of like sitting there watching something unfold and can't really do anything about it. And I am anxious. Like, I just want to get out of here. The food is not worth it. I promise it's not that good. Especially considering she was spreading butter on some bread with her hands. I don't know if I'm eating that. I'm just saying. But just what I really appreciated about this episode, a lot of people have named this as like their favorite episode or the episode of the season. And yes, I connect to other things, which is why I liked 4 and 7 more. But I can really admire what was happening in this episode, from the acting, which like everyone was coming in like we're all hitting a home run.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that is why we saw these heavy hitters, is it feel like this is an actor show. Like, they're going to give you solid writing. They're going to give you the opportunity to really flex your muscles. Like, you can't come in here and not really know how to work with other people and work with the script. And I think, even I'm thinking of Jamie Lee Curtis, who you mentioned she won the Academy Award this year, and wasn't, if you listen to our previous podcasts that we've done, wasn't, would it have been my personal pick as far as supporting actress. And seeing her in this episode and even the finale, I was like, come on, Jamie Lee. Like, all right, yes, ma'am. That yes, absolutely. And I feel that from even Bob Odenkirk, who I know is very acclaimed from, what is it, Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul, yep.
And so you have these heavy hitters coming in and giving you.
They gave.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, what I liked about the choices to kind of do that is like, I think for the most part, these were all kind of like smaller actors, like, they're becoming stars now, but like, when we first meet a lot of these people, like it's a lot of people kind of meeting them for the first time. I wasn't familiar with Shameless, so Jeremy Allen White, this is my first kind of like real interaction with him, I believe. And, so come to this episode where it is, I think it'd be hard pressed for this to be the first time you've had a Jamie Lee Curtis, like kind of like first time seeing her, or Bob Odenkirk, or even like John Mulaney, like arguably like one of the top 3 biggest comedians on the planet right now. You know what I mean? Like just huge. And I think like having all of them there, I used the word claustrophobic earlier, but like it's like really big names, big stars, and you're kind of like eyes are moving everywhere. And I think that captures of like what it probably feels like for, a character like Carmy to return home. It's just like all these gigantic personalities, like his mother, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and then even like kind of like the tangential cousins or whatnot are still like Sarah Paulson and John Mulaney. Like even interaction with them are like probably bigger and elevated. And I really feel like the casting was like really done well in this episode
Absolutely.
Too, and kind of like how it tied into the star power of everybody.
And John Bernthal, you had mentioned this earlier. He's fantastic.
Yeah,
like,
so good.
He's been in a lot of things. I think a lot of the times he's hired on as like a character actor. I'm thinking of like Wolf of Wall Street type vibes of like he comes in and he has a smaller part, but he makes the most of it. But when he's given the opportunity to cook, you're getting a 5-course meal. Like he really is incredible, and I am always excited to see him when he shows up to things. Or shows up in things, I should say. And that scene between him and Bob Odenkirk, just the the tension, the animosity, the resentment that you can really just feel. And part of it is, yes, the kind of maybe relationship dynamics, and part of it you imagine too is like the internal stuff of like what Mikey is dealing with. And the scene too, I'm thinking of between Mikey and Carmy, where Carmy gives Mikey the drawing, and Carmy walks away, and there was something that John Bernthal does in terms of just he's looking at this photo and he's really holding it. And what I saw in that is what I see in a lot of the work I do, particularly with folks, with say like depression or substance use, where so much of what people tell me is, I feel like a burden. I feel like I'm not gonna succeed at anything. I feel like people, around me are gonna see that I'm not worth anything. And I could see that going through his mind as he's holding this photo. And none of those things are true. I want to shout out to folks. You are worthy. You are valued. You are loved. And he does not believe that, though. And he does not believe that about himself. And you could see that, and that leads to then, that interaction between the Bob Odenkirk character, and it's just so good, and it's so real and raw, and it is like heartbreaking, and it was a great episode of television. I think like certainly I could see why people are so drawn to what they were able to accomplish in that 60 minutes.
That one might get the writing nod for sure. Just speaking of that scene with him and Carmy, it was a slow zoom shot, or it's they were like in the hallway and they slowly zoomed in on them the entire time. What a great shot! Just first of all, great shot. For me, that felt more like a special because again, I watched it after the finale.
Yeah, that's what I felt too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was like, upon watching after the finale, it's like, oh, cool context. This makes sense. This makes so much more sense. Like the Claire thing, Mikey as a character, Jamie Lee Curtis appearing in the finale. I was like, damn, did I
What?
miss her? Well,
That's right. I guess like by that moment
I-
you had already like they had dropped Olivia Colman out of nowhere, so I guess it's not too crazy. But yeah, that's an interesting way that you approach this
Experience
season.
that.
yeah. I was like, wait, did I miss something?
Oh.
So,
Oh well, all right. So I think because I did want to touch about this, and I doubt this character made the rundown of people we wanted to hit, but I really enjoyed Pete. One,
Yes.
him bringing in an extra
Sugar's
fish.
husband.
oh, Pete.
Him bringing an extra fish, hilarious, so funny. He just
That
he's
was
just
funny.
trying to do right. He's just trying to be
Pete's been
And
trying to
Sugar-
do right. All he does is try to do right.
that is just like, get that shit the fuck out of here. Hilarious. But then, and this
Yes.
is why this is why I love. It was a great season finale. And we keep talking about like, oh, this episode was great. This episode was great.
Well, I think we're here.
Season
I think
finale
we're.
also
I think
great.
we're here. I think we're here. We're
Yeah.
good on. We're good on fishes.
Yeah,
Right.
because they
Yeah, I think
directly
so.
connect.
They
Yes,
do. They
exactly.
do. Yes.
So, just like what a choice to have like Pete be the only character to interact with Jamie Lee Curtis as the mom character. Like interesting, like to only have them be like the dynamic that's shown in the last episode, and like Pete crushes it, and Pete is like so good in that scene. Like
He's really
I
great.
am, like just how much he cares, and like him trying to convince her, like him really putting the effort, just just come in. Like what do you mean? What's wrong? And just like to see him kind of like really go for it, and like kind of like not be able to convince her, and then like it slipped out that like Nat's pregnant, and him not knowing that, like
She
and,
didn't
like,
know.
seeing that on his face is so spectacularly done. That whole interaction is fantastic, and then him going back in, and then like having to just like talk to Nat, like
Oh gosh.
amazing, incredible. And I did not see that coming out of. This is why I think Chef Rico brought this up at the very beginning of this podcast. It's like how much they care about these characters, and like how much like I guess Pete doesn't succeed there, but like it's such a like human touching kind of like just like well done, well executed moment of like shaping who he is. You know what I mean? He's not just the punchline of jokes who brings in an 8th fish on 7 fishes day. Like he is like a real like fully fleshed out character who just like loves his wife and tries really hard to do things. You know what I mean? And maybe isn't successful, but like he totally cares. What are your guys' thoughts on Pete and that scene?
No, I think to add context to the family and friends night, they're trying to make a run through the restaurant, and so Nat is hoping that Donna will show up, because this is like both a project that Nat's invested in as basically the general manager, and obviously that Carmi is invested in as the executive chef. And so throughout the night, Nat is just like, will she or won't she? And I agree. I thought it was such an interesting choice that Pete is the one to see Donna, and they just have that heartbreaking scene together where she's like, I just need you to tell me it's okay that I can't do this.
Ugh.
And the fact that he's tearful and like is very conflicted of like, this would mean so much to Natalie. This is really all she wants out of this night, is that you show up, with like trying to hold some compassion for someone who's still struggling, and even the dialogue of Donna of saying like, I can't say it verbatim, but basically the intent is, I don't want to fuck this up for them. Like I know that this is such a big deal, and I feel like me being here is just going to mar that. And
I think she adds, just quickly, I think she adds like she doesn't deserve to see them be
Mhm.
successful like this. Like,
Yeah.
woof.
and when we connect fishes to this episode, I'm thinking of like, I imagine Mikey thought that of some sort of like there's something about that is not deserving. And we see that, mirrored in the experience with Donna and then in Carmy, that there is just this entire thread and that's what trauma does. That's what difficult, unacknowledged mental health concerns, substance use concerns, like all these things fester and people feel a certain way about themselves. And so you see this, we saw it with Mikey, we see it with Donna, we end with Carmy, locked in a fridge in which the self-sabotage, like a completely unraveling everything that he's trying to build out of, like, this question of, like, do I deserve to have the happiness and love and things that exist outside of this restaurant? Am I disappointing or letting people down if I were to have this full life? And I think that's just, it's just incredible writing, and it's really like, yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, no, I don't even know if I've like noticed like quite that thread until like we kind of talked about it, like kind of like we talked about like earning things and earning moments and like kind of like deservedness, and like so many of these characters feel like they don't deserve like the happiness, like Mikey and Donna, and then like Carmy at the end. So to kind of like circle back to like his relationship with Claire and like the arc that they go on, it's like, it's so loving. It's such a like kind of like almost like rom-com-y, like just like how nice it kind of like casually progresses, and like they have like inside jokes and their dialogue's like really thoughtful, and like they go to a party together and Carmy pretends to be somebody else, and you kind of get to kind of see that like this would be like just like a level of playfulness, and that like they're great together. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure like if like they showed everything, there would be like some bumps that get in the road, but like for everything we're shown, they're great together. We're led to believe that they're meant to be and they deserve to be together. And I guess like this kind of like growing anxiety begins to build in Carmy, that like he can't have both. And he's like losing focus on like kind of like what he needs to do for the restaurant. And he's supposed to call this like, person to fix the door, and Cicero, once again, I'm always impressed by like really good anecdotes that like stick with you, because it's just like somebody telling a story that's like short and compact. Cicero tells this story to Carmy about it's not Bill Buckner, about the famous Chicago Cubs,
the baseball player, right?
Yeah, and it's who reaches out and kind of like, I think it's like a foul ball. Steve Bartman kind of like, puts his hand out in front of a foul ball that like bounces out, and like, Moses Alou, I believe, is like the Cubs player who like misses it, and the Cubs go on to lose. I believe, I don't think it's the World Series. I believe like the game to go to the World Series, I believe. And anyways, and he tells this story, and it's like really well done, about like a person like innings before, and I think a game before, who like messed up first and kind of led to a lot of like these things, in which they kind of like either, and I'm not going to nail this anecdote, but like kind of needs to make a decision to do this or do that. And instead he does nothing. He like freezes in that moment, and kind of like everything else falls apart and leads to the Steve Bartman incident. The really big one that's famous. And I thought that anecdote was like really well told and really well done. And then, I think it's like the next episode, I believe, Carmy's like, he's like getting ready to call the doorman, and then gets a call from Claire. And instead of picking up the phone or calling the doorman, he does nothing. He like puts his phone down, gets a missed call, and probably gets distracted, goes, does something else. And he blows it. You know what I mean? And then obviously it like leads to like, he goes into the freezer to get something out, and the handle breaks, and he's trapped in there the entire time during like friends and family. And I don't even know. I don't like how to even begin like the final scene. I guess like friends and family ends up going well without him, but like Carmy's heartbroken that like he wasn't able to participate, and he made a mistake that kind of led to him here, and he's just like taking his eye off the ball. And he's also trapped in a tight space, so he's probably like,
and it's cold.
and it's cold, and he's kind of going through it, and he's having a conversation with Tina, and he thinks he's still having a conversation with Tina when he goes on this rant about like how he doesn't deserve love and how he like took his eye off the ball and he like only needs to focus on restaurant. He doesn't deserve happiness, and kind of like this deservedness that we've already spoken about. You know, his feelings around it are is that like, you know, this is it. This is all I can have in my life. I can't have anything else. Only for it to reveal that on the other side it's like Claire, and she hears it all, and like she's heartbroken hearing this. You know, I can't remember what she says, but she says something
like I'm sorry that you feel that way or something. So
exactly, yeah. And like, you know, she like walks away, and it's like, ugh. And then I think maybe there's a couple scenes later, but then like he finds like a voicemail that he had missed from Claire, and he like listens to it, and it's like Claire telling Carmy she loves him, and it's just like just so devastating. Just your guys' thoughts as I like gather my feelings.
You know, just you know, it for a season that I think that went so well, something was bound to go wrong. And they absolutely waited to the finale for things to go wrong. Mind you, things went great, you know, and that's why I think why the finale is so good. Because Carmy is on the other side of this, you know, the walk-in, and he's locked in, and he's thinking the worst, you know. I guess I take it he can't hear really else what's going on too, and just everything is going right. And he thinks it's not going right. And it was so what's so devastating is so, you know, like before even the Claire bit, you know, he's talking to Tina, and Tina's trying to reassure him like, no, Jeff, you did it. Like everything that you invested in, myself, Marcus, Richie, everything is going great. Sydney is killing it here, you know? And it's like, you did this, you know, you did this. And he's hung up on the ketchup packets, you know, because it's the ketchup packets that he realizes that he lost his focus, because he asked Tina, when did we stop using Heinz ketchup, you know? And he can't even answer that question for himself. And she's like, you did that like a week ago or something. And it sucks because I guess for Carmy as a character, again, a lot of it is, again, I said this, it's like trust. And, you know, he trusted himself to invest in these people, but then, you know, push comes to shove. It's like he can't even trust them to be out on their own. He has to be there to handhold them or supervise them. And it's like, well, if you really trust them, they should be fine. So it's sad on multiple parts because, you know, the revelation of Claire, because again, like he thinks Claire is the root of the problems as far as, you know, he thinks the night went bad. He thinks, oh, it's Claire's fault. But it's like, but it's also revealing that it's like at the end, he, you know, he second guesses himself. You know, all the investment he's put into everybody. Now he's having a shouting match with Richie. You know, you're a fucking loser. You know,
yes.
You never amount to anything. You know, you hang on to my family because your family sucks.
I mean, that scene's also spectacular as well. Just like the shot of like kind
the
of
shot
like,
was
the
good,
shot,
yeah.
yes, the shot was good. Yeah,
fantastic seeing them both on like the other sides of things, and
Richie
and I think
screaming,
it's like,
I love you.
right, yeah. Oh my gosh,
God.
yeah.
The best. I think one, because it's like kind of almost like a changing of power, a flipping of the guard or something. Like Richie's the one on the other side. He's like in the kitchen. He's like helped out. He's really successful. He, you know, is in a suit, and you know, Carmy's trapped in here. He's just like pissed off Claire, and that's where it starts. Like Richie cares so much about Carmy. He's like, what did you say to her, dude? Why is she pissed off? Like, what the fuck just happened? You know what I mean? And then like, to your point, you know what I mean, Dr. Shafrika, about, you know, him starting to like yell, I love you. Just like that growth And I think that really cemented, I think Richie is my favorite character this season. It's like him yelling that in the midst of the fight, in the midst of like there's them saying like, I'm guessing this isn't the first time they've had like a yelling match like this, where they've kind of said quote unquote unforgivable things. You know what I mean? Like just really digging deep and like kind of like not holding back. And him like reversing it to say like I love you, but like Carmi just not hearing that. Like, you know what I mean? He doesn't. Not even a speed bump. Like Carmi just keeps going at Richie, just keeps attacking him, while Richie at the very least takes a moment to kind of like try to express that in the midst of their kind of back and forth. And that scene was amazing.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, you brought up this idea of like, does he trust the staff, etc. I think he does. I don't think he trusts himself. Like if he didn't trust the staff, like he invested so much into all of their evolutions and growth throughout the season, sending people to where they need to be or where he perceived that they needed to be to take that step up. He didn't do that for himself. And so I don't think he trusts himself. So the idea of like, I'm locked in here, I'm not being able to contribute, I'm not able to really prove myself. And there were people around that stepped up. Sydney stepped up, and I think there's some anxiety herself. She was, sipping on the Pepto. Just like everyone is feeling the anxiety of the moment, but everyone is capable because Carmi really cared about giving them the tools to then succeed during that night. And it's just unfortunate that he was unable to do it for himself. And I think that's what, the last scene told us, is that Richie did have this growth, which is why he's able to say like, I love you. But also even when Sid is making that decision of like, what the fuck do we do? And Richie was able to step up and really be a part of that. And you were saying earlier, Forks, this is the payoff of like what he learned in Forks, is that, yeah, I can be in the kitchen and do what I need to do to help move along the food and get these tickets out. And I can also check in on Uncle and bring him out, that frozen chocolate banana that is clearly tied to meaning. And so everyone is doing great. And I think Carmi, my hope is that he'll have the time and space to recognize his worth and that he can also be doing great. But he's the one that gets in his own way, which I think is real, though, is there are very real barriers and things that happen systemically that make things a hard time for a lot of folks. And I think there are ways in which we can become a barrier for ourselves, in being able to accomplish and being able to love and being able to connect and create community. And I think we see that in Carmi.
Yeah, what I liked is that he didn't even trust that he could like go out and like kind of like deliver the food to Claire. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't like spend 3 seconds away from the kitchen. Like Richie kind of like, doesn't badger him, but it's like kind of, what do you mean? Just go. Like we'll handle this. And he's like can't even like trust everybody to like not fall apart when he steps out for like a like have a minute conversation with her. And instead he gets trapped in the fridge for like the entirety of the time, and they still keep going. You know what I mean? Like his just inability to trust was just like really proven that night, in those kind of ways, which is like, and he takes the worst like ideas or like solutions out of that. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like instead of being like, oh wow, like it did go smoothly, I can trust, like I should be able to balance like both like, being committed to the restaurant and being like having a relationship with anybody. Instead it's like, no, I have to cut that off. I have to be super focused. I can't trust anybody. I have to be like all in all the time. And
it's this demand for perfection. Because
they kept flashing back to the
dude, Joel McHale. Yeah.
I didn't realize that was Joel McHale.
I didn't realize it either until I looked up the cast, and I was like, oh, wow, that is Joel McHale.
He looks so mean. I guess
he was a dick.
Looking that mean.
Well,
yeah. Well, I mean, there's other moments in this that So yes, Richie stepping up. Love that. Just what a great moment. And not only Richie stepping up, but there was a dramatic pause between him and Sydney, because that was another little trust bridge that needed to be built.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it didn't feel like they solved it, but they kind of like minted it a little bit with
they did.
the crack
They did.
guy.
And that was great because
the guy who did crack.
I thought it was heroin.
Oh, heroin. Excuse me.
Oh,
or what was it? Yeah.
No,
it was some kind of.
He's shooting it up for sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
There's something going on. Yeah, one of the waiters.
Yes. Played by Alex Moffat from SNL. And what Marcus like? I think I should fire. I think I gotta fire you.
I think I have to fire you.
Yeah. Let me go check.
He's like, hey Sid, he's doing crack back there. I told him I think I gotta fire him. Oh yeah, no, you should definitely fire them. That was great. They ran out of forks. They didn't have enough forks. That was fun. And then also Marcus and Sydney blew up on each other. Marcus blew up on Sydney. He was like, yo, Sydney, why are you ignoring me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about their interaction. That's what I was saying. They kind of like made up over the guy doing the drugs and.
Oh well, they made up over that, yes. But prior,
they did have a really big blow up. He kept yelling things to her, and she wasn't responding. I was just like, just respond to Marcus. What are you doing? Just say something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And then I guess everything else went great though, and that's the thing. They all utilized their newfound skills, and boom, they did it. And it was great. A couple of hiccups, and that's the thing. And I think as far as like this layered storytelling, when it comes to Carmy as a character, you can have hiccups as far as balancing work and your own life outside of work. You can have hiccups. You can have times where you don't call the refrigerator repairman, but look, you still succeeded. And mind you, he's over here thinking he did not. He thinks his work-life balance was not there, and it was there. And it worked. And it's just this overthinking, this over-contextualized idea of what it means to run a restaurant. But no, he did the thing. I think the finale, I mean, the season 2 has been such an enjoyable ride for a lot of happy moments throughout. To end on such a sour note, mind you, it's probably like the only sour note of the season. All minus the flashback, I really can't think of any other beats that were like, damn, that sucks. For these characters.
I think it's episode 8 in which they like passed the test.
They passed the test, right?
That they had been like building up towards, and that's such a happy, nice, kind of like heartwarming moment. You know what I mean? Where you're really cheering for them. They're gonna have a restaurant. You know what I mean? And like that scene, like the way they build up to it, like kind of like they like showed like the face of like a character, and then kind of like the growth that they've been on this journey. It really feels like a finale. In that kind of way, only to have the next 2 episodes be like not quite, you know what I mean, just like we have to bring these characters down a bit. And I think it's like really they don't bring any of them down. It's kind of specifically Carmy and Claire, and I guess Pete kind of has like a not the best interaction, but like it does feel like a successful night for mostly everybody. But there's like some darkness like lurking in the shadows for sure.
And I feel what is different between kind of this ending and this show and say some of the other things I've watched, particularly I'll say like this year, is it ended on a sour note, but I feel there's a way back. Like I think there's trust in the writers and what they've shown us that they want Carmy and company to to grow and be better and to have this business together. And I'm not comparing it because they're not like one-on-one in terms of like the same, they're not doing the same thing. But I think of like Succession, where the intent is like it's supposed to be a tragedy. Like this is tragic, and so this is how we end it. Really every fucking season finale, like, but particularly with the most recent. And the intent, like those characters aren't supposed to grow. Like they're not supposed. Like the lesson is that there is no like they don't have the capacity to change. And similarly, they get in their own way, but there is a completely different intent behind some of that. There's a lot of power and etc. dynamics. Here, I feel like, okay, this is like a sad ending, and this is like a way, like, I don't want to see that, and I don't feel like they want to see it either. Like the hope is like everyday people, which this is, you know, this cast is in terms, like these characters are. We bounce back, you know. There is the opportunity for things to shift and change, and we saw that in so many characters. So I feel it's possible for Carmy. I think even kind of his season finale of the first season, where he's able to kind of voice and tell these stories about how he's feeling internally during one of the, you know, the meetings, gives like way to that there's a way back for him, and that this is what we want to see. So I have hope, and I'm curious about how that'll be manifested as we continue on into an inevitable third season. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, haven't lost hope. I mean, I could see Claire just being like a one season person, but I really kind of hope not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, once again, it feels like I can't imagine Carmy just meeting somebody in the wild and like developing a relationship naturally. You know what I mean? Like, it really does feel like it's either Claire or nobody. So I hope he has somebody.
She will be back.
I'd be surprised if she doesn't come back, but I do hope like that like kind of works out. Like Sid has like a successful night, and she earns the respect of her dad, but is also throwing up next to the trash can is the end of her night. So it's like, I'm hoping for a little more balance there. Maybe she's able to kind of recognize Marcus is like a sexual human being, and that I'm sure she has her own desires, you know what I mean? Like, that she might want to explore also. There's probably, I hope she's able to like kind of grow and learn that there's more to life than just carrying the weight of an entire restaurant success on you the entire time. I'm curious of like how Richie's gonna able to like this, if he's able to kind of stay in this kind of zone he's in. I really hope so. He's really grown on me this season. But yeah, it's like, I think there's like plenty of more room for them to explore in the next seasons. The restaurant hasn't even opened. You know what I mean? Like, they got a long way to go. But yeah, as you said, Chef Rika, it's like I really like speaking about trust and like earning stuff. Like, I trust these creators and these writers. They've earned that trust through these 2 seasons. So
absolutely.
Well, goodness, chefs. I think we devoured this course known as the Bear.
Boo.
What? Did you say boo?
Boo.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. Thank you, Chef. Behind.
Do we have any more final thoughts?
Corner.
Behind. Corner.
Do we have any more final thoughts on The Bear as a whole, season 2? How would we like to wrap? Go watch it. Yeah, there's a good one.
Yeah, go watch it.
Hopefully you didn't listen to this podcast without having watched it.
Yeah.
But if you did go watch it, and if you have watched it, maybe watch it again. Or
yeah.
What do you got to lose? It's a great piece of television right here.
Yeah, really, it really is, and I think it feels like, there's something for everybody. You know what I mean? Even if like you don't connect with all the characters, it's gonna be like a handful you're gonna be able to connect with, and even if you're not connecting with all the storylines, like there's a handful of storylines you will, and like these one-offs, it's just like maybe one doesn't work for you, but like maybe like the rest do, and Yeah, it's just like yeah, I think really really good work right now, and if you're missing it, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Agreed. And come Emmy season, we could see the Bear claim more accolades under
We'll
its
see
belt.
season 1, correct? It'll be season
Season
1.
one will be up
one.
for Emmys. Season 2 can
Is
be
next
up
year.
for Emmys next year, but season 2 can also get Golden Globes this year.
And
Weird
maybe
how that
season
works.
2. I think the voting is about to take place.
Yeah, I believe we're in the midst of. I've seen a lot of for your consideration stuff, so I think we're in the midst of it. So
I could see season 2 bolstering kind of like season
one.
one.
yeah.
You know, it's kind of
Agreed.
like potential, I guess.
Oh no, absolutely. It's a coordinated attack, coordinated front, trying to get some hype for this show. But all right, we're gonna close up shop. We're shutting it down. Send it to Dish. Lock the doors. Work on
Hands. I need hands.
hands. Yeah, that sums it up for the Bear, our deep dive of the Bear. I'd like to thank Chef Dr. Rika, and Chef Hooper TV
Thank you,
for
Chef.
coming up. Thank you, Chef. Thank you, Chef, for coming on and discussing the greatness that is the Bear. Yes, go watch it. You can find it on Hulu, both seasons. Be mindful of binging because you're going to be like me, and now I have caught up, and now I have to wait another year like the rest of everybody. But it'll be worth the wait. But yeah, if you like everything you heard about the Bear, or if you got takes on the Bear, we love to hear from you. Join our Discord in the link below. Love to hear from you. And again, thank you for listening on all your podcast stations, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for listening. And thank you again for all of your continual support on social media, including Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Twitch. And we are on Threads now. So if you ever see a thread, be sure to thread it up with us. Is that what they said? I don't know. All right. But yeah, that's it. I'm your Yanko host, Grandmaster Chef, Grandmaster Hoop, Supernova Chef Dr. Rika, and Chef Hooper TV. How shall we close this thing? You want to say
Marry me, Juliet.
You never have to be alone.
I've been waiting. Yeah. All you have to do is run.
It's a love story.
Story,
Baby,
baby,
just
just
say
say
yes.